Hogwarts. Give the headmaster a boost. Chapter 61. The next morning, Slytherin and Gryffindor each had 100 points deducted because the commotion from their duel once again damaged the Great Hall. To prevent the Great Hall from becoming a legendarily indestructible king, Dumbledore specifically designated an area for young witches and wizards to play cards. Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick were very happy about this. They celebrated with a hearty duel in the dueling arena. Professor McGonagall was happy because Gryffindor was already at negative 90,000 points, so another 100 points deducted made no difference, and she was pleased to see Slytherin dragged down with them. Professor Flitwick was happy because Ravenclaw had surpassed Slytherin to become the house with the highest score. For this, he specifically warned the Ravenclaw students not to cause trouble and lose points. If they dared to cause trouble and lose points, he would punish them with detention in Horatio's shed. The Ravenclaw students were so scared they trembled and dared not cause trouble. Only a few CAW organization members stated that they would not cause trouble and lose points, and would strive to earn points, asking Professor Flitwick to reward them with detention in Horatio's shed. Professor Flitwick was speechless. It is also worth mentioning that Professor McGonagall favored the Gravekeeper's deck, while Professor Flitwick had a soft spot for the Gladiator Beast deck. Fred and George, who had become the fake Weasley, found Horatio and suggested that since Yu-Gi-Oh! Was so popular, they should hold a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel competition at school, with prize money provided by the Quibble group. Horatio was very interested. After discussing the details with Fred and George, he had them organize the competition. Afterward, Horatio went to Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets and first printed himself a set of Ashizu Tearlaments. Feeling it wasn't secure enough, he then printed himself 3 Orichalcos cards. He hoped his opponent wouldn't smash the duel disc and summon a wand to cast the magic card Avada Kedavra. Thus, the Yu-Gi-Oh! WCS, Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship Tournament, whose viewership and popularity would later be second only to the Quidditch World Cup, began to take shape, except for a certain despicable card merchant who was banned for life. Horatio, having given the old man a hard time during the Hogwarts' demise, hadn't had any major events to challenge him recently, only occasionally having the basilisk scare young witches and wizards who trespassed into the Forbidden Forest. So, a rumor spread throughout Hogwarts that a giant snake wandered the Forbidden Forest, a savage creature that preyed specifically on young witches and wizards. One day, Daphne Greengrass, who had been out of sight for a long time, found Horatio and quietly handed him a note. After reading the note, Horatio felt very puzzled. Wasn't this girl very afraid of him? Why would she invite him to the trophy room tonight, saying she had something important to tell him? So, that evening, Horatio, filled with curiosity, went to the trophy room, where Daphne was already waiting. Lord Horatio, Daphne said, bowing to him when she saw him arrive. Speak, what is it? Horatio asked curiously. Daphne hesitated for a moment before speaking. Lord Horatio, I overheard someone in the Slytherin dormitory planning to deal with you. Is that all? Let them come. Horatio said disappointedly, thinking it was something major, but it was just this. He could tie his hands and feet and still wipe them out. But they plan to disguise themselves as your fans, administer a potion to control Lord Hather, and force you to comply. What? A terrifying magic burst forth from Horatio. Daphne was knocked to the ground by this terrifying magic. She felt as if a pair of hands had opened her mind, casually flipping through her memories. After a long while, Daphne finally felt the magic dissipate. She gasped for breath as she got up, looking at Horatio with fearful eyes. Horatio bowed to her, apologetically handing her a potion as compensation and saying, "Thank you, Daphne. I owe you a favor." Then he turned and left the place. After Horatio left, Daphne leaned against the wall for support to prevent herself from falling due to weak legs. She took a sip of the potion Horatio gave her and felt a little better. A clear tear traced down her cheek. Astoria, you are finally saved. The next morning, Dumbledore woke up in his lounge and walked out to find Horatio sitting grimly in his office chair, with a mouse on the desk. Before he could even ask what was going on, Horatio spoke directly, "I want to kill someone." Dumbledore was stunned. He looked at Horatio's cold eyes and asked, "What happened, child?" Horatio told Dumbledore what he had seen in Daphne's memories last night. Dumbledore felt a headache after hearing it. What kind of idiot could come up with such a crazy idea? Wait, we need to consult Severus on how to handle this. When Snape walked into the headmaster's office, Dumbledore explained the situation to him. Snape stared at Horatio's expressionless face, cursed those fools in his heart, and said, I will punish them. No, they must die. Horatio said coldly. Snape saw that Horatio was not open to negotiation, took out his wand, and said, let's see how you, as dean, will kill my students through me. Is that so? Horatio took out the pear from his inner lining and pointed it at Snape. Expelliarmus. Requiem of the End. A red light and a gray light collided in the air. The red light, upon contact with the gray light, dissipated in the air as if it had been killed. Snape was greatly alarmed and quickly used an armor charm to defend, but it was useless. The gray light killed the armor charm the moment it touched it, and shot towards Snape's chest. Before the gray light hit Snape, Dumbledore hadn't had time to stop it, and the gray light dissipated in the air. Dumbledore soothed the restless Fawkes and asked why Fawkes was afraid. Fawkes told him that the spell could truly kill him, with no chance of rebirth. Child, we don't need to be so extreme. Punishing them will be enough. Dumbledore advised. Horatio took out a withdrawal application and handed it to Dumbledore. Are you worried about Hogwarts's reputation? It's fine, I'll withdraw. Don't worry, I won't harm other innocent people. I will only slaughter their families until not even a chicken or dog is left. Dumbledore was startled and quickly tore up the withdrawal application. Before he could speak, Horatio interrupted him. Or I'll give you a second option. Horatio pointed the pear at the mouse on the table, Avada Kedavra. The mouse instantly died. Horatio, before the mouse's soul dissipated, stuffed it back into the mouse's body, then a platinum light appeared in his hand, pressing on the mouse's body. Soon, the mouse was alive and scurrying around again. Dumbledore and Snape were silent after seeing this. Dumbledore said, I have some matters recently and need to leave Hogwarts for a while. I can't manage things at school. Snape said, I will personally go and bring them out of the Slytherin dormitory. The next evening, Snape arrived at the edge of the Forbidden Forest with a few students, where Horatio had been waiting for him for a long time. Snape handed over 2 boys and 1 girl from Slytherin, led by Winster Selwyn, to Horatio. They've already been controlled with the Imperious Curse. Remember, don't let them die openly at Hogwarts. Don't worry, I still need a few moles, Horatio said, then used the Imperious Curse to control the students. I'll return them to you tomorrow morning. Afterward, Horatio led them deeper into the Forbidden Forest. Once deep inside the Forbidden Forest, Horatio released his control over them, sat on a stone, and waited for them to regain consciousness. After a long while, Winster and his companions recovered from the effects of the Imperious Curse. They were horrified to find themselves in the Forbidden Forest, with Horatio sitting on a stone in front of them, expressionlessly watching them. Behind him, a giant snake followed. Horatio, what do you want? Winster reached for his wand, only to find it wasn't on him. Crucio. Horatio didn't want to waste words with them, so he cast the Cruciatus Curse as a test. Winster and his companions instantly felt a pain that no ordinary person could endure. Winster Selwyn, Talia Bostwick, Bujansen and Shafiq, Horatio called out their names one by one. Do you know why I'm looking for you? No. I don't. No. You dare use an unforgivable curse on us. I'll tell my father, and he'll have you thrown into Azkaban. Winster gasped, recovering from the pain of the Cruciatus Curse. Don't know. No problem, let's continue. Crucio. Another wave of intense pain swept over the 3, leaving them unable to speak after it subsided. Horatio stepped on Winster's head. Do you know? I have many ways to make you confess everything. Why do you think I'm using the Cruciatus Curse? Looking at Winster, who was now speechless beneath his foot, Horatio shook his head. Legilimens. After reading Winster's memories, Horatio said with disappointment, so you wanted to control me just to covet my Yu-Gi-Oh! Card business. Winster tried to say something, but Horatio didn't give him the chance. Avada Kedavra. A green light struck Winster, taking his life under the horrified gazes of the 2 remaining people. Using the killing curse for the first time to kill someone, Horatio himself didn't feel well. Suppressing the urge to destroy everything, Horatio pulled out Winster's soul, took a grinding stone from his pouch, and began to grind his soul. Talia and Bujansenin trembled in fear, listening to the agonizing screams of Winster's soul, and knelt on the ground, begging Horatio for forgiveness. Horatio ignored them. After grinding Winster's soul into fragments, he reassembled it and inserted it into a pre-prepared alchemical puppet. After dealing with Bujansenin in the same way, Horatio looked at the despairing Talia. You can go. I don't kill women. Horatio waved his hand at her. Just remember not to speak of this. Talia's face showed the expression of someone who had narrowly escaped death, and she scrambled out of the forbidden forest. Horatio nodded to the basilisk behind him, and the basilisk began to pursue Talia in the direction she had fled. As Talia fled through the forbidden forest, she was contemplating how to report this to Professor Snape when she suddenly ran into a pair of yellow eyes. Before Talia could react, she was robbed of her life by the basilisk's gaze. Horatio walked over, grabbed Talia's soul, and placed it in the grinding stone. Slytherin would never have imagined that the monster he created would personally kill the pure-blood wizard he protected. Ha 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 ha, how ironic. Looking at Talia's lifeless body on the ground, Horatio said disdainfully to the basilisk, "These three are your dinner." The basilisk nodded, picked up Talia's body, and swallowed her whole. Horatio inserted Talia's soul into the last alchemical puppet and commanded them, "You three return to Hogwarts first and act as if you're living normal lives. Report any developments to me once you return to your families." The three alchemical puppets nodded. Horatio opened a portal and appeared in Snape's office. Snape looked at the three unharmed individuals and asked in surprise, "You didn't hurt them?" Horatio shook his head. "They are just three alchemical puppets, imbued with edited souls by me. They can mimic normal human life." Snape seemed a little excited. "Your alchemy has reached such a level. No matter how I look at them, they seem like real people." Horatio looked at the expectant Snape. "These are just puppets. Do you want your old lover to live as a puppet? Don't worry, I can create homunculi with one hand." "No, I mean." Snape subtly glanced at a certain alchemical puppet that was helping him brew potions. "Holy crap, you thick-browed, big-eyed evil potions professor is addicted to action figures and wants to upgrade the materials," Horatio scoffed. "When your old lover revives and sees you playing with her life-sized action figure, how do you plan to explain that?" Horatio seemed to think of something else and continued, "Wait, no, action figures are a small matter. If she knew you were bullying her biological son at school, wouldn't she pick up her wand and fight you to the death?" Snape broke out in a cold sweat. "Then what should I do? You're asking me. I could grind her soul into pieces and re-edit it. What are you doing? Don't pull out your wand." Horatio saw Snape decisively pull out his wand. "You dare to grind her soul into pieces? Shiny." Snape cast a curse at Horatio. "I was just thinking about it, I didn't actually do it. By the way, how did you learn Japanese?" Horatio dodged Snape's curse and asked curiously. "You shouldn't even think about it. And didn't you recommend I watch Japanese movies? Isn't it normal to learn a bit of a foreign language?" Horatio dodged another curse from Snape, opened a portal to his own dormitory, and, leaving behind a phrase, "Can't help you, fend for yourself," he hid in his dormitory. After Horatio fled, Snape put away his wand and looked at Lily's alchemical puppet with a melancholic expression, unsure of what to do. Meanwhile, Horatio, having fled back to his dormitory, picked up Heather from the cat bed and began to pet the cat. Meow. Heather looked helplessly at her owner, who was frantically rubbing his face against her belly. "I've already said I'm the real heroine, all other humans can stand aside and sit at the kids' table." Lately, Harry had been feeling off, very off, 9/10 off. Snape wasn't tormenting him in class anymore. Instead, he was guiding him in potion making with a gentle voice, which gave Harry goosebumps all over. He felt like pulling out his wand and shouting, "You're not Snape. Who are you really? Show yourself, you monster." "Miss Potter, 5 points to Gryffindor for paying attention in class." The students from both Gryffindor and Slytherin widened their eyes, staring at Snape with disbelief. Although they didn't know why he called Harry Miss Potter, it was utterly unlike Snape. "Scarhead, what did you do to our head of house? You'd better confess honestly, or you'll regret it later," Malfoy said to Harry, who was seated across the aisle in front of him. "Malfoy, do not be rude to Miss Potter. 5 points from Slytherin, Snape sternly told Malfoy. The entire classroom erupted. Everyone knew that the biased Snape would never deduct points from his own house, yet now he had done so for Harry's sake. Hermione poked Horatio, who was observing the scene with great interest, and asked, "Did you do something to Snape? Why is he so strange?" "No, I didn't. Maybe he wants to be Harry's dad." Horatio recalled how Snape had pleaded with him a few days ago to find a solution, as he couldn't stand Harry's face. Horatio and Snape had signed a contract, agreeing that all future potions class assignments would be handled by Snape, playfully calling it self-production and self-consumption. Afterward, Horatio brewed a pair of Harry feminizing invisibility glasses for Snape. Now, when Snape looked at Harry, he saw a young Lily. After class, Hermione dragged Horatio to the library, asking him to help her look for books about house elves in the children's section. Oh no, the restricted section. Why are you suddenly interested in house elves? Speaking of which, Hermione, you're going bad, starting to target the restricted section. Aren't you afraid of losing points for Gryffindor? It was Horatio's first time entering the library since coming to Hogwarts. Madame Pants stared intently at him, fearing he might blow up the library. Madame Pants then gave Hermione a reproachful look, as if to say, "You're the one who brought this bomb man into the library." Feeling Madame Pants's resentful gaze, Hermione blushed and told Horatio, "It's because Harry wants to help Dobby escape the Malfoy family's control. I want to look up information about house elves." Then she glared fiercely at Horatio. "Thanks to a certain someone, Gryffindor has completely lost hope this year. Everyone has given up, even Professor McGonagall. All right. I really don't understand why a descendant of the true Union Jack would be interested in liberating house elves," Horatio grumbled as he walked towards the restricted section. Horatio glanced at Madame Pants, who was guarding the entrance to the restricted section, and said, "Madam, please move aside." Madame Pants's face darkened, and she sternly told Horatio, "A pass." Huh. Horatio looked bewildered. As the mighty Hogwarts bully, shouldn't I be able to do whatever I want? Why do I need a pass to enter the children's section? Then he pulled out the sword of Gryffindor and the diadem of Ravenclaw from his bottomless bag and declared, "Look at my sword of Gryffindor and diadem of Ravenclaw and answer me, looking my Gryffindors and Ravenclaws." Madame Pants said nothing, staring at Horatio expressionlessly. Horatio pouted, Fine. Then he took out paper and a pen, wrote himself a pass right in front of Madame Pants, and handed it to her. After Madame Pants looked at it, she moved aside, clearing the path to the restricted section. "I knew it was just a formality." Sigh. When will this burden of formalism finally be lifted? Madame Pants, if I wasn't worried you'd set the library on fire, you think I'd let you in? Horatio walked among the bookshelves in the restricted section, casually picking up a book on soul research. Tisk, and this is in the restricted section. Horatio closed the book and glanced at the title, Advanced Soul Notes. Is this even advanced? It doesn't even know that ghosts can be deep-fried, and it calls itself advanced. After picking up a pen and marking a few errors, Horatio had a bold idea. He took out his own notes on soul research, divided them into 7 parts, and hid them in different books. When a young wizard breaks into the restricted section and collects all 7 notes, they can summon the Dark Lord. Horatio hid the last note in a book and placed it back on the shelf. Then he found a few books about house elves, walked out of the restricted section, came over to Hermione, placed the books in front of her, and then picked up one of them and began to read it with great relish. Hermione saw that Horatio was actually reading a book about house elves and said, surprised, "Horatio, are you also interested in liberating house elves?" It's settled. With Horatio joining in, Dobby will soon be free. Horatio looked confused. Do you have some misunderstanding about me? I'm just researching which parts of house elves are edible and which can be used as potion or alchemy ingredients. If they can't create labor value, then let them create economic value and nutritional value. Hermione's face darkened, and she said, "Are you a devil?" "How can you say I'm a devil?" Horatio counted on his fingers, and it seemed the bad things he had done couldn't be counted even with all 10 fingers and 10 toes. It seems devils are actually a bit kinder than me. In the end, Horatio was jointly kicked out of the library by Hermione and Madame Pants, who even put up a sign at the door that read, "Dogs are allowed, Horatio is not. HMPH, if I can't go in, I can't go in." And here I thought I had generously donated my precious research notes to the restricted section. It's like discarding the millstone after the donkey has done its work, or tearing down the bridge after crossing the river. Restricted section. Dark Lord, I cannot accommodate your living father's notebook here. As for Dobby, he was eventually indirectly rescued from the Malfoy family by Harry. That day, after Hermione finished her research, she told Harry that only clothing personally given by a master could free a house elf. Harry was very troubled by this, not knowing how to make Lucius personally give clothing to Dobby. Snape, who was secretly observing Harry, saw Lily's distressed look and immediately flew to Malfoy Manor that night, using his wand to force Lucius to hand over his underwear to Dobby. From then on, Dobby gained his freedom and became good friends with Harry. As time passed, it was finally time for the annual House Cup Award ceremony again. For the other three houses, it was a tense moment, but for the Gryffindor students, hey, it didn't matter, they were just having fun, happy every day. As for Horatio, the day before the House Cup ceremony, he ran to Professor McGonagall's office and got right in her face, leaning on Professor McGonagall's desk and grinning, saying to Professor McGonagall, "I've always wanted to see that expression on your face, that expression of wanting to win the House Cup but not being able to." Professor McGonagall was so angry that she fainted on the spot. Horatio achieved the accomplishment of being the first student to make Professor McGonagall faint. As for whether Horatio considered his fate after Professor McGonagall woke up, who cared? He'd be happy first and worry about it later. In any case, Horatio arrived at the House Cup Awards feast in a wheelchair, his left arm bandaged, being pulled by Newt towards the Great Hall. "What happened to you? How did you end up like this? Who did it?" Hermione asked anxiously, looking at Horatio in the wheelchair. "It was Professor McGonagall. She couldn't take it, ambushed me, and even used stone gargoyles," Horatio complained to Hermione. "Oh, well, then it's fine." Hermione no longer paid attention to Horatio. Professor McGonagall must have done that because Horatio was being a jerk. Originally, Horatio was supposed to stay with Madame Pomfrey for a while longer, but to see the good show tonight, Horatio insisted on coming, even in a wheelchair. The Gryffindor students saw Horatio's miserable state, stifled their laughter, and their respect for Professor McGonagall surged like a mighty, endless river. Finally, it's unclear who started it, probably some red-haired little witch, but the Gryffindor long table erupted in boisterous laughter. "You never learn, do you?" Horatio said he admitted he deserved to be beaten for being a jerk. After all, he wasn't like some protagonists who, despite provoking others and getting taught a lesson, still clamor about how the other person is courting death. But if you laugh at Uncle Huo first, Uncle Huo won't be happy. Horatio decisively pulled out a small red potion from his bag of holding. The wheelchair was just his disguise. How could a potion master not brew healing potions? He gulped down the small red potion, then tore off the bandage on his hand, stood up from the wheelchair, kicked the wheelchair flying, and sat next to Hermione, smiling at the Gryffindor students whose smiles had frozen. Smiles don't disappear, they just transfer. Come on, Hermione, Harry, and Neville, put these on. It'll prevent accidental injury later. I suggest you all stay far away later, so you don't get splattered with blood. Horatio handed a bracelet to the three who hadn't laughed earlier. Hermione put on the bracelet and said, "But the professors are still watching from up there." It's fine, it's fine. Horatio snapped his fingers. Banish. Dumbledore and the other professors immediately felt that something was wrong. Although they seemingly remained in the Great Hall, they appeared to have been transported to another segment of space-time magic. This little rascal has this trick up his sleeve. How much space-time magic has he mastered? Dumbledore tried to undo the magic, but it was useless. Although he was knowledgeable, he knew nothing about space-time magic and was helpless against the powerful space-time barrier. He suddenly realized that the little rascal might already be invincible with this space-time magic. He was glad that the little rascal had notified him before killing people. Otherwise, if he had been caught off guard by such a move, he really wouldn't have had any solution. What a good child! Dumbledore exclaimed. Professor McGonagall looked worriedly at the Gryffindor students below, who were isolated by space-time magic, hoping Horatio wouldn't go too far. I've banned your saviors first, what are you going to do? Horatio drank 3 small blue potions. The other 3 houses, if you don't want to be implicated, quickly leave the Great Hall. The young witches and wizards from the other 3 houses quickly left the Great Hall, while marveling that Gryffindor truly lived up to its name, being brave enough to offend the Great Demon King. After the students from the other 3 houses left the Great Hall, Horatio, after grabbing back the Gryffindors who tried to escape in the chaos, loudly announced, "The first Hogwarts Battle Royale now begins. Shurima, your emperor has returned." Sand began to continuously emerge from the floor of the Hogwarts Great Hall. The sand gathered together to form dog-headed, human-bodied soldiers holding scepters, who began to frantically attack the Gryffindor students. Although Horatio had a strong desire for revenge, he still had a bottom line. The soldiers would catch up to the young witches and wizards, knock him or her to the ground, give them 2 black eyes, and then go after other young witches and wizards. Finally, the Gryffindor students, sporting black eyes, sat around the Gryffindor long table. Dumbledore and the others were also released from the space-time magic. Dumbledore, unexpectedly, did not punish Horatio. Instead, he looked at him with a relieved expression. Horatio felt very strange. Did he give the old man PTSD? Professor McGonagall saw that the Gryffindor students hadn't suffered too much, only getting 2 black eyes, and she also breathed a sigh of relief. But seeing her students with black eyes, afraid to look up, she felt inexplicably amused. No, she was the dean, she couldn't kick them while they were down. Ha 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 ha. She finally couldn't help but laugh. As Professor McGonagall laughed, the other professors and young witches and wizards present also laughed. The Hogwarts Great Hall was filled with joyful laughter, but the Gryffindor students buried their heads even lower. After laughing for a while, Dumbledore cleared his throat and said with a sonorous charm, "All right, everyone, stop laughing. Next is the House Cup Award ceremony." Once the young witches and wizards present quieted down, Dumbledore continued, "The scores for each house are as follows. Slytherin, 374 points. Hufflepuff, 315 points. Ravenclaw, 396 points. Gryffindor, minus 99,724 points." The Ravenclaw students erupted in cheers, while the Slytherin students fell into a dead silence, not expecting Ravenclaw to emerge after Gryffindor had given up. Dumbledore gestured for quiet below. "I think what happened this year needs a summary. First, Mr. Harry and Miss Lonnie bravely faced the monster created by Horatio and withstood its first wave of attack. I think this requires extraordinary courage, so I'm adding 50,000 points to each of them." Horatio had an ominous feeling and immediately started booing. "Fix. There must be a fix. It's unfair. I'm going to report it to the Ministry of Magic." Hermione quickly covered Horatio's mouth. Dumbledore ignored Horatio and continued to announce, "Horatio attacked his Gryffindor classmates before the feast, so I'm deducting 50 points from Gryffindor." Horatio breathed a sigh of relief. That was good. But he displayed powerful space-time magic, so I'm adding 100 points to him. Additionally, the Yu-Gi-Oh cards created by Horatio have become popular throughout the wizarding world, so I'm adding another 100 points to him. Therefore, Gryffindor's final score is 426 points. The Gryffindor students snapped out of it, realizing they had won the House Cup again, and immediately cheered. Horatio was bewildered amidst the cheers. He noticed Professor McGonagall's mocking gaze and read her lips. "I've always wanted to see that expression on your face, that expression of seeing me win the House Cup again." The surrounding Gryffindor students even seemed to be twisting the knife, shouting his name, as if thanking him for helping them win the House Cup. Horatio couldn't handle the stimulation. His vision went black, and he fainted, falling into Hermione's arms. Horatio became withdrawn, locking himself in his dormitory for 3 days straight. Although Professor Dumbledore felt happy after playing a trick on Horatio, the current situation made him a little afraid. Fortunately, after 3 days, Horatio emerged from his dormitory, full of life and vigor, mainly because the system had given him his annual big gift package the previous night. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining free talent points *6, books, Curseology, From Zero to Curse King, Mecha and magic technology from a certain AI, black mist skills of a certain clown king. Horatio decisively maxed out his charmology and dark arts talents, and also added 2 points to ancient magic. Charmology. 11. Everyone calls Merlin the Grandmaster, but Merlin would call you the Grandmaster too. Dark arts. 11. Lord Voldemort. While Horatio is alive, maybe I shouldn't resurrect. Ancient magic. 1. The ancient demon king says, you're still far from it. The most obvious feeling after maxing out charmology to god level was the reduction in mana consumption. Previously, to show off by casting high difficulty, large area magic silently and wandlessly, he had to chug small blue potions, but now he didn't need to, though using a wand could still save some magic power. Here, the setting is that wands can increase a wizard's control over magic. Dark arts was even more apparent after reaching god level. Not only was mana consumption reduced, but even the negative effects of using dark arts were eliminated, so Horatio immediately tried some lower-ranked magic. As Horatio walked into the Great Hall for breakfast, Professor Dumbledore suddenly darted out from behind the door, grabbed Horatio, and apparated to the headmaster's office. You did that thing last night, didn't you? Professor Dumbledore said to Horatio sternly. What thing? Horatio looked bewildered. Last night, all the teachers and students in the school collectively dreamed of a man in yellow clothes with a white mask, and this morning, several students showed signs of physical decay and mental derangement. Professor Dumbledore shivered as he recalled the terrifying yellow figure in his dream last night. I don't know, it shouldn't have anything to do with me. This was true, Horatio had only tried it out last night, felt a great terror was about to descend, and quickly dispelled the magic. After all, he was a fun seeker, not a madman. If he summoned that being, the whole world would probably be over. Professor Dumbledore stared into Horatio's eyes and said sternly, don't try to master powers you can't control. Horatio nodded. That thing was truly terrifying, and just trying it gave him a sense of impending doom. These things should be sealed away for now and absolutely never released in his lifetime. Perhaps when he was close to death, he would take these spells into his grave, hoping that grave robbers might discover his final legacy to this world. World, are you sick? You're going to harm me even after you die. On the day they were about to leave school, Daphne found Horatio. Lord Horatio, please save my sister. Horatio didn't agree immediately but first asked, your sister? Tell me about her situation. Daphne recounted, my sister, Astoria, suffers from a family bloodline curse. Even Professor Dumbledore couldn't do anything after seeing her. I can only place my hope in you. Please, you must save my sister. Horatio was speechless. Your family probably has some kind of prophet bloodline. I only got the book on curseology a few days ago, and today you're asking me to solve a bloodline curse. Isn't this a perfect match? All right, give me your home address, and I'll visit once I'm ready. Horatio still agreed to Daphne's request. Considering he owed Daphne a favor, and he also wanted to study bloodline curses, after all, he wanted to develop a major weapon against pure bloods, so they wouldn't bother him like flies every day. The heavy stone in Daphne's heart finally dropped. She bowed to Horatio and wrote down her home address for him. Hermione, are you taking the Hogwarts Express or my portal? Horatio asked as he walked beside Hermione, with Newt pulling the luggage and Horatio's other 3 pets following behind them. I'll take your portal. I want to try what it feels like to go through a portal. Hermione considered it for a moment and replied. By the way, do you want to come to my house during the holidays? I'll pick you up then. Hermione thought for a moment, then smiled and replied, it depends on your performance. After arriving at platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station via the portal, Hermione took her luggage from Newt's cart and stroked its head as a sign of gratitude. Then she gave Horatio a tight hug and whispered in his ear, goodbye, Mr. Horatio, and my answer just now was, I do. After hugging for a while, she released Horatio and said to his back, goodbye, Heather, Newt, Isis, and Nephthys. Then she pulled her luggage and walked towards the platform wall. Coo, Newt nudged Horatio with its eagle head. All right, I know, and when did you learn to coo like a pigeon? Horatio turned and stroked its eagle head. Let's go, we're going home, to our own home. Horatio opened the portal to his home and returned to his small house. After tidying up the luggage, Newt took Isis and Nephthys to the forest to catch rabbits, while Horatio held Hather and went to the sofa. Horatio stroked Hather's cat head and said to her, "Hather, how about we create a monster again?" Meow. All right, my master. This time, I want to create a super cool monster. How about you all become its pilots together later? Meow. Sounds good. Let's go, we'll prepare the materials first. 7 days later, Horatio had dug out a space approximately 100 meters in length, width, and height beneath his house. Horatio stood in the underground cavern. A table was set before him, with a blueprint laid horizontally on it. Hather was enthusiastically sweeping the blueprint with her tail. In front of Horatio was a white dragon-shaped mecha, about 60 meters tall. Civilization Arbiter, Galvatron was a mecha monster Horatio had crafted based on mecha and magic technology from a certain AI, using salvaged Beloricune fragments combined with mithril created through alchemy. You three, come back quickly. It's time for your equipment upgrade. Horatio recalled Newt, Isis, and Nephthys, who were chasing and playing around Galvatron. After the three of them flew in front of Horatio, Horatio upgraded Hather's collar, Newt's saddle, and Isis and Nephtys's anklets. I've upgraded your equipment. Now it includes a food detection function. If it alarms, don't eat that thing. To be safe, I've also equipped you with universal antidotes. I've also carved anti-curse runes onto your equipment. If anyone dares to curse you, this rune will block it and inversely pinpoint the source of the curse. Then Galvatron will flatten that area based on the location. Also, if you encounter enemies that your equipment can't defeat, you can call Galvatron, and it will protect you then. After listening to Horatio, the four pets nodded, then pounced on Horatio, rubbing their heads against him frantically, thinking, Master is really too good to us. In a dimly lit pub, three well-dressed but patched men were discussing countermeasures. Those two marginal descendants of your family have returned, haven't they? The leading man asked, tapping his finger on the table. Yes, although they seem no different than usual, I always feel something is strange, another man replied. The leading man pondered for a moment, then we have to consider the possibility of Imperio. Secretly eliminate those disciples. Another man hesitated for a moment and asked, Winston is your biological son, isn't he? The leading man sneered, he's just a fool. He's as foolish as his mother. I just casually fooled them into thinking they had a chance to inherit, and they willingly worked for me. If Horatio had been present, he would have been surprised, thinking that when he read Winston's memory, he believed Winston was working hard to compete for the family inheritance, not realizing he was merely a discarded pawn. All right, we will secretly eliminate them, one of the men below said. We should have been exposed. What should we do now? The leading man did not answer but turned to another man and asked, Shafik, have your family's alchemists not deciphered it yet? The Shafik family head shook his head. No, the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and dual discs look simple, but they involve very complex soul editing technology. Then he hesitated for a moment and still spoke, do we have to offend an alchemy master using such methods? Wouldn't cooperation or a direct marriage alliance be better, Selwyn? The leading Selwyn family head slapped the table. Do you think our pure blood families rule the wizarding world with just our small numbers? It's pure blood ideology. Otherwise, how could our small numbers suppress so many half-bloods and muggles? We can tacitly accept Lord Voldemort as a pure blood, but what about Horatio? He is a pure-blooded muggle born. If we set this precedent, how can we control those people? Besides, do you think Horatio would cooperate with us? Shafik and the other man nodded in agreement. We can only take it by force. Bulstrode, go and win over some Aurors from the Ministry of Magic. I believe they will be very interested in a muggle young witches and wizards with no power or influence, the leading man said to the Bulstrode family head on his left. Okay, I'll contact them later, the Bulstrode family head said. Shafik, go and contact those dark wizards in Nocturne Alley and see if they have any way to control Horatio's pets. Okay, Shafik agreed. I will contact the Ministry of Magic to see if there's a chance to cooperate with them. I don't believe no one would be interested in such a large sum of wealth, especially when it's in the hands of a muggle young witches and wizards. Horatio did not yet know that a conspiracy against him had been born in that dim little pub. At this time, Horatio was still studying the book on curses, as he still needed to fulfill his promise to Daphne. When he had studied enough, Horatio asked Nephthys to send a letter to Daphne, stating that he was preparing to visit her home. In a luxurious manor in Wiltshire, England, Daphne received Horatio's letter and excitedly found her father, William Gringlass. Father, I received a letter from Horatio, that genius classmate I told you about. William Gringlass was currently hosting the Malfoy family, who had come to visit. I still need to consider what you said, the main thing is to see what the two children want. William apologized and then left the reception room. After William left the reception room, Malfoy tugged at Narcissus' sleeve and said, Mom, I don't want to marry Daphne. Lucius sternly said, Shut up, Draco. Don't think I don't know you're squabbling with that Potter boy at school over that Weasley girl. Even if she wasn't turned that way by a potion, I wouldn't allow you to get involved with someone from a family that is a disgrace to pure blood. Narcissa crouched down and stroked Malfoy's head. Child, the Gringlass family is your best choice for a marriage alliance. Daphne is both beautiful and well-mannered. Isn't she dozens of times better than that Weasley girl? Malfoy did not retort, but a seed of rebellion was planted in his heart. He could not forget that wisp of red hair, he could not forget her nightingale-like voice when she argued with him, and he could not forget her generous bosom. Turning to William, after he finished reading the letter in Daphne's hand, he said to her, Daphne, prepare yourself. Your classmate should be arriving soon. No sooner had he spoken than Nephthys flew to the table beside him and pecked at its ankle ring. A golden portal opened before it. Horatio stepped out of the portal, to their astonished gazes, and said, Where is my patient? William sized up Horatio and politely said to him, Mr. Horatio, isn't it? Please follow me, my daughter is waiting for you here. Horatio nodded and followed William to a luxuriously furnished room. A little girl in white stood by the window, looking at the scenery outside. Astoria, this is Mr. Horatio, whom your sister mentioned, William introduced. He will help look at your condition. Astoria turned around, sized up Horatio, then curtsied, pulling up her skirt. Hello, Mr. Horatio, my name is Astoria Gringlass. It's a pleasure to meet you. Horatio nodded. He could tell that although she appeared optimistic and cheerful, there was a subtle hint of sorrow hidden in her eyes. You two chat. I still have guests to entertain, William instructed before turning and leaving the room. After William left the room, Astoria invited Horatio to sit at a small round table in the room, laden with various pastries and tea sets. What would Mr. Horatio like to drink? Astoria asked, picking up the teapot. Coke. Astoria paused. I'm sorry, I don't have any here. It's fine. Sit in front of me and give me your hand. Astoria sat in front of Horatio and placed her fair little hand in Horatio's. Horatio held her hand, releasing a trace of magic to sense the curse within her body, then frowned deeply. Astoria looked at Horatio's expression, feeling a bit desperate, but still comforted Horatio. It's all right, Mr. Horatio. I've been like this for so many years. Father has found many people, but no one could solve it. Thank you for your help. Huh. Horatio looked up, a question mark appearing on his forehead. What are you talking about? I have many ways to solve this trash curse. I'm just disappointed it's too simple and can't provide research material for my 9-clan elimination. Really? Astoria stood up excitedly. Horatio rolled his eyes at her, boiled. Tears streamed down Astoria's cheeks as she hugged Horatio tightly. Thank you. Thank Merlin for letting me meet you when I was about to give up. If only I had known you sooner, Mom wouldn't have. Horatio quickly pushed Astoria away. I'm an alchemist, not a sorcerer for element number 29 on the periodic table. And why do you, like Hermione, like to poke my forehead with your ribs? It hurts, you know. Astoria broke into a smile, covering her mouth as she chuckled. Mr. Horatio is truly amusing. All right, no more jokes. I have 3 methods. The first is to directly devour it with a stronger curse, then I will lift that curse. This process will be very painful, but it's effective quickly. The second method is to slowly remove it with a potion. This process will last about a year. The third method is for me to engrave a purification array on you, clearing the curse from your bloodline little by little. Astoria didn't wait for him to finish and immediately replied, I choose the first one. Horatio was stunned for a moment, looking at her determined gaze as he asked, "Are you sure? This process is truly very painful. Can you endure it?" Astoria firmly replied, "I'm sure. This curse has tormented me for many years. I think no matter how painful it is, it can't compare to the long-term disappointment and despair." Horatio was silent for a while. "I respect your wish. Go inform your father and your sister. I'll go prepare some things." After Astoria happily went to find her father, Horatio shook his head. He had originally planned to use her to experiment with his 9-clan elimination game, but never mind. Pure bloods were everywhere, there was no need to harm a strong little girl. When Horatio was ready to go to the living room, Daphne and Astoria were embracing and crying. Their father, William, stood beside them, comforting them. William saw Horatio and quickly walked over to shake his hand, saying excitedly, "Thank you, truly thank you. This curse took her away from me, and I don't want Astoria to be taken by it too." Horatio quickly pulled his hand away from William's palm and disgustedly washed his hands with hand sanitizer. "Sorry, this is England. I feel uncomfortable shaking hands with a man. Also, quickly prepare a room, I'm in a hurry." William said awkwardly. "Okay, I'll arrange for a house elf to tidy up a room immediately." After William left to arrange the room, Horatio, accompanied by Astoria and Daphne, toured the living room. They came to a portrait. Horatio looked at a beautiful woman holding a child in her right hand and a little girl in her left, smiling at them. "This is our mother," Astoria introduced to Horatio. "She lost her life to the curse when I was 5. So, this curse was left by your mother's bloodline." Horatio stroked his chin. No wonder Astoria had the curse, while Daphne and William did not. Horatio pondered that the curse could indeed be easily passed to the next generation through the mother, but how could it curse back through the descendants? "It's you. Horatio, what are you doing here?" Malfoy's terrified voice rang out from behind, interrupting Horatio's thoughts. Horatio fanned his nose and turned to say, "I was wondering why the room was filled with the smell of hair gel. So it's you two, Big Slick Back and Little Slick Back." "You." Malfoy was about to say something more, but Lucius pressed Malfoy's shoulder with his snake head cane and respectfully said to Horatio, "Hello, Mr. Horatio." "Ah, Big Slick Back, you giving in like this makes it very difficult for me. I thought I could gather some experimental material today." Horatio was initially happy that someone had walked into his trap, but Lucius's respectful attitude left him with no excuse to lash out. "Tell me, what are you doing at my client's house today? If your answer isn't satisfactory, I'm afraid you'll need to come back to my home with me to answer slowly." Horatio pulled out a pear, playing with it in his hand, and smiled at Lucius. Lucius was so scared that cold sweat streamed down his face. He honestly explained their purpose for coming to the Greengrass Manor. "How dare you? Don't you know that Little Slick Back and Harry fighting at school for the affection of the Weasley princess is my most important source of entertainment? You actually dared to stop it. It seems you need to come to my laboratory with me," Horatio said, pointing the pear at Lucius. An invisible threat made Lucius almost kneel to the ground. Beads of cold sweat ran down his cheeks. Horatio was even more terrifying than the last time they met. The last person who gave him this feeling was Lord Voldemort, no, even more terrifying. With the House of Malfoy's innate sense of seeking advantage and avoiding harm screaming warnings, Lucius tremblingly said, "Respected Lord Horatio, I am willing to let Draco become your follower. You can command him as you wish." "Follower? No need, I only need house elves." "Okay, you can treat Draco as a house elf." Horatio put away his wand with satisfaction and came before Malfoy, patting his shoulder. "Congratulations on becoming my house elf Unit 4. Remember to find me at the start of next semester." Horatio handed 3 very exquisite-looking golden pocket watches to Lucius. "You know the Selwyn, Shafik, and Burstead families, right? Do everything you can to deliver these 3 pocket watches to their family territories. Someone always needs to make up for the missing experimental materials." Lucius shivered, respectfully took the 3 pocket watches, and with Horatio's permission, fled the Greengrass family with Malfoy and Narcissa as if escaping. Horatio pondered in his mind, 3 alchemical golems suddenly lost contact. I had wanted to use them to open a portkey and directly descend upon the territories of those 3 families. No matter, since they are from the pure blood Malfoy, you shouldn't be suspicious of the items they deliver, right? Then, hee. After Lucius left, William emerged from the corner and said to Horatio, Lord Horatio, the room is ready. All right. Horatio, with Astoria, followed William to a room. The clutter in the room had been cleared, leaving only an empty space. Horatio had Astoria sit in the center of the room and handed her a potion. This will make you feel better later. Astoria took the potion, nodded to Horatio, and drank it all. After she finished the potion, Horatio placed his right hand on her head, and a black magical power entered her body from his hand. Inside Astoria's bloodline, two black curses began to collide, causing her immense pain. Sweat began to stream from her body, but she gritted her teeth and endured, not crying out. Finally, after resisting for a while, the bloodline curse was devoured by Horatio's stronger curse, and then Horatio withdrew his curse. Looking at Astoria's clothes, soaked with sweat, and her tottering body, Horatio said, Cry if you want to. You'll feel better after you cry. Although her whole body was trembling from the pain, Astoria still gave Horatio a sweet smile. Thank you, Mr. Horatio. Mr. Horatio is truly a good person. Horatio was silent. After a while, he spoke. You are very impressive. You've changed some of my views on pure blood families. He then handed her another potion. Drink this, take a bath, and get a good night's sleep. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you can say goodbye to the past and start a new life. After saying that, Horatio opened a portkey and returned with Nephthys. After Horatio left, Daphne couldn't help but rush to Astoria and hug her, crying bitterly. Astoria drank the potion and felt a little better. She gently patted her sister's shoulder. It's okay, big sister, I'm fine now. You should be happy for me. The curse that troubled me for so many years has finally been cleared. After a while, Astoria looked at her sister, whose tears had dried, and asked seriously, Sister, can you tell me what kind of person Mr. Horatio is at school? From another perspective, Lucius, Malfoy, and Narcissa returned to Malfoy Manor in disarray. Malfoy asked, puzzled, Father, why do you want to sell me to Horatio as a house elf? He's still a muggle. Although he's quite powerful, we don't need to curry favor with him like this. Lucius asked earnestly, Draco, do you know why our house of Malfoy has endured for so long? Malfoy replied, because we are pure blood, and we enjoy privileges in the wizarding world. Lucius shook his head. Pure blood is just a facade. So many pure blood families eventually declined. Our family's true foundation is adapting to the times. Malfoy asked, confused, why do you say that? Lucius began to tell Malfoy the history of their family's rise. In the very beginning, our family prospered through muggles. Our ancestors helped the king conquer the land, and thus we acquired a large amount of land and wealth. After the Statute of Secrecy was signed, we were the first family to decisively cut ties with muggles and support the statute, which gave us greater influence in the wizarding world. When you know who swept through the wizarding world, we also stood on his side, but we never expected him to fall at the hands of a child. So our family faced a reckoning, and fortunately, I pretended to be under the Imperious curse, which allowed me to escape. This time, meeting Horatio, he felt even more terrifying than you know who. Lucius looked at Malfoy meaningfully. I hope you will do everything possible to maintain a good relationship with Horatio, even if it means wagging your tail like his dog. Then Lucius took out the 3 pocket watches Horatio had given him. The William Gringlass family has already taken a side. His giving me these 3 pocket watches is also forcing me to take a side. Now is a matter of life and death for the House of Malfoy. Lucius never dreamed that Horatio, a single-minded creature full of mischief, hadn't considered so much. He just needed some test subjects and house elves. How does that saying go? The harm caused by Lord Voldemort's most elaborate schemes didn't compare to the damage caused by a flash of inspiration from Horatio. Leaving aside everything else, just the fact that Horatio almost summoned the Yellow King to this world before leaving Hogwarts, dragging this world down with him, Lord Voldemort couldn't compare, even if he cast the killing curse until his wand smoked. After listening to Lucius, Malfoy nodded. To be honest, he was quite grateful to Horatio in his heart. He didn't want to get engaged to Daphne in the first place, and Horatio had, in a way, helped him out of a difficult situation. Seeing Malfoy agree, the heavy stone in Lucius's heart finally fell. He then began writing letters to pure-blood families connected to the House of Malfoy, including the Selwyn, Shafik, and Bulstrode families, inviting them to a dinner at Malfoy Manor. After writing the letters, he handed the pocket watches to Narcissa. Find a craftsman to make several similar pocket watches, trying to match the appearance. Narcissa nodded, took the pocket watches, and left Malfoy Manor using apparition. A few days later, Horatio received a letter from Lucius, stating that all the pocket watches had been delivered to the three family heads without arousing any suspicion. Horatio sensed the locations of the three pocket watches, which were roughly consistent with the approximate locations he had learned from William Gringlass. He couldn't help but admire Lucius's efficiency. Lucius is so cooperative, it seems I'll have to be a bit nicer to Malfoy. I'll let him train with Harry. Which family first? Hather, you decide. Horatio wrote the names of the three families on slips of paper and let Hather choose. Meow. Hather slapped a paw onto the slip of paper for the Shafik family. All right, then it's the Shafik family. At this moment, inside the old residence of the Shafik family head had gathered a group of dark wizards to discuss how to deal with Horatio. A disheveled man in tattered clothes, who was at the forefront, loudly said, "Shafik family head, I don't know what you're worried about. What's so scary about a second-year young witches and wizards? He'd probably be scared witless by a Crucio." The other dark wizards also chimed in, "Yeah, it's unreasonable for a young witches and wizards to possess so much wealth. It should all be distributed among us. He, I love tender young witches and wizards the most. I'll peel off his skin then. You want to fight me for him? I'll use him as a test subject for my poisons." Shafik's head ached looking at the noisy crowd below. He forcefully shouted using a sonorous charm, "Don't underestimate him. He broke through the defenses of the Hogwarts professor and destroyed Hogwarts in his second year. Now, what we need to consider is how to control his pets." The leading dark wizard said disdainfully, "How many spells can a second-year young witches and wizards know? Does he know the killing curse?" "Sorry, I do know the killing curse." A boy's voice sounded behind them. "Avada Kedavra." A sickly green light shot directly at the leading dark wizard, knocking him flying before he could react, tearing his soul from his body in midair. Only when his body fell silently to the ground did everyone look behind them in terror. Horatio, wearing a red clouded black robe, walked into the room with a smile. "So many people, huh? It seems the number of my test subjects has increased." Shafik looked at Horatio in horror. "How did you get here? Ha ha ha, your luck isn't so good tonight. My cat chose you. Are you ready to face despair and fear?" Horatio said, smiling, as he slapped his left hand with a pear. "What are you waiting for? Attack him. Avada Kedavra." Cruciatus curse, intense. But something terrifying happened. All the dark curses passed through Horatio's body as if through air, hitting the wall behind him. Horatio calmly said, Tuzige's skill is still very useful. You monster." Some dark wizards were so terrified by this scene that their bodies went limp. They tried to use apparition to leave, but found the space was sealed, and they couldn't open it no matter what. "Don't you understand that in a team fight, you have to ban spatial abilities first? Come, I'll show you a special skill, Lumos." A dazzling light appeared at the tip of the pair's wand. The dark wizards in front immediately closed their eyes, dodging the flashbang. Some stubborn dark wizards shouted, "Don't bring out childish tricks to embarrass yourself." Horatio laughed, "Ha ha ha, don't rush. Lumos is just for spreading. This is the real killing move, Cruciatus curse, intense." A red beam of light burst from the tip of the pair, splitting like lightning in the air, striking everyone in front of Horatio. Everyone present was immediately tormented by immense pain, falling to the ground and wailing incessantly. Horatio showed a satisfied expression. Yes, I just want to hear your wails. They are truly as beautiful as heavenly music." Then he snapped his fingers, and everyone's wands flew to him. Wholesale wands seems like a good business. After tossing the confiscated wands into a cloth bag, a black vortex appeared on the room ceiling. Black chains with hooks extended from the vortex, piercing the shoulder blades of the fallen wizards and lifting them towards the portal Horatio had opened. After everyone had been taken away, Horatio left with the words, Galvatron, destroy this place, and then followed them into the portal. Outside the Shafik old residence, a huge portal opened, and a red light accompanied by a magic circle shot into the area. In a blaze of fire, the Shafik family was declared history. In the underground space of Horatio's cabin, the captured members of the Shafik family and the Dark Wizards were horrified to discover that a white dragon mecha, like a god, had flattened the Shafik family's old manor and surrounding farms with a single blow through a portal. The Shafik family members looked at the burning land outside the portal, their hearts filled with despair and regret. The Shafik patriarch's face was ashen. Centuries of Shafik family glory and heritage had been destroyed with a single casual strike. Now he and his family members were Horatio's prisoners, and he didn't know what fate awaited them. In any case, if the situation were reversed, he wouldn't let Horatio off either. But he still held a glimmer of hope. I will reveal everything, only begging you to spare my family members. Huh. Horatio was surprised. What nonsense are you talking about? I still trust my legilimency and veritaserum more. The Shafik patriarch completely despaired. Indeed, Horatio alone could capture all of them alive. How could such powerful strength not include legilimency? Horatio stopped wasting words with him, directly using legilimency to violently open his mind and read his memories. Interesting, they actually want to team up with the Ministry of Magic to deal with me. After reading Shafik's memories, Horatio suddenly had a bold idea, but for now, it was more important to start his 9 generations elimination experiment. Horatio walked up to a Shafik family member, and despite his pleas, directly placed his hand on his head, injecting the curse into his body. As the curse entered, the family member's entire body began to rot, eventually turning into a pool of blood under the horrified gaze of the others. Horatio glanced at the other unharmed Shafik members, and quickly began to search for a solution in his mind. After a rough idea formed in his mind, he walked up to another beautiful female member. Despite her repeated pleas and offers to be Horatio's wife, Horatio mercilessly placed his hand on her head. Unlike the previous experiment, another female member near her also wailed and turned into a pool of blood. Seeing this scene, the Shafik patriarch was filled with despair. He began to curse, calling Horatio a devil from hell and saying that he would get his comeuppance one day. Excuse me for interrupting, but it seems like I'm the victim here, right? I was doing fine at school, happily putting pressure on old Dumbledore every day, and you just had to come looking for death. Horatio said with an innocent expression. The Shafik patriarch ignored him and continued to curse Horatio. Horatio shook his head. Why doesn't anyone believe I'm a kind person? With that, he cast a curse on another member, and this time, a man and a woman next to him also turned into blood under the influence of the curse. Yes, I'm truly amazing, it worked so perfectly. Horatio excitedly pulled the Shafik patriarch over. Now, allow me to present my groundbreaking invention, the bloodline curse-killing art, which I call the Pureblood Annihilator. Its power can be adjusted from 3rd-generation blood relatives all the way to 9th-generation blood relatives. It can curse the younger through the older, or the older through the younger. It can curse through living people, or through blood. With that, Horatio cut open the Shafik patriarch's arm and extracted a drop of blood. Now I'll demonstrate it for you. Remember to give it a 5-star rating. As Horatio cursed the drop of blood, the Shafik patriarch watched helplessly as his family members turned into pools of blood one after another. He used his last ounce of strength to curse, "You'll go to hell with me." Horatio said speechlessly, "You're a wizard, and you still believe in that heaven and hell stuff. Besides, would hell even dare to take me?" The remaining dark wizards present trembled in fear at the sight, constantly wailing that they had been forced and begging for mercy. Horatio said nothing. Black mist, shimmering with an eerie green light, appeared behind him. They began to surge towards the dark wizards, entering their bodies through their eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouths, transforming them into undead creatures radiating an eerie green light amidst their wails. Horatio looked with satisfaction at the undead creatures kneeling neatly before him. From now on, you shall be called the Ruined Legion. Now, divide into 2 teams and go control the Selwyn family and the Burke family. Horatio then handed 2 space-locking devices to the 2 strongest undead wizards, opened portals to the Selwyn and Burke families, and sent them each with a team of the Ruined Legion through. Early the next morning, Horatio opened a portal to Dumbledore's office at Hogwarts. He then kicked open the common room door. Old man, come with me to set off fireworks. Dumbledore, in his pajamas and with a face full of dark lines, said, Child, why are you setting off fireworks so early in the morning instead of sleeping in? Are you coming or not? If not, I'll set off fireworks at Hogwarts, alright. Alright, I'll go. Dumbledore, fearing Horatio would cause a big scene at Hogwarts, quickly patted his pajamas, transforming them into his usual robes, and followed Horatio through the portal. Passing through the portal, they arrived in a living room where members of the Burke family were kneeling, pointed at by several undead wizards radiating ominous black mist and eerie green light, wielding wand-like objects made of bones. Child, what's going on? What are these creatures that don't look like good news? Dumbledore was a bit bewildered. Was it this exciting first thing in the morning? You mean these? Horatio casually grabbed a Burke, injected black mist into him, and soon, amidst agonizing wails, he too became an undead wizard. This is my cool ruined legion. They fear no pain, no hardship, no death. As long as the black mist in their bodies isn't cleared, they can resurrect indefinitely. Even fiendfire is useless. Horatio casually grabbed an undead wizard, burned him to ashes with fiendfire, and with the help of the black mist, he resurrected on the spot. Dumbledore was a bit overwhelmed by this sight. Last year's monster invasion had already made him struggle, and this year, before school even started, not even a few days into the holidays, there was already an undead apocalypse. The Burke family members trembled in fear at the sight and quickly begged Dumbledore for help. Dumbledore indicated, I'm not helping. Not only can I not beat the little rascal, but even if I could, I wouldn't save these deadweights who raised a big daddy for me. And this, a curse I developed targeting bloodlines. Horatio pointed at the Burke patriarch with a pear and cast a curse. Instantly, all the Burke family members present turned into pools of blood. I call it the pureblood de-essence device, simple and efficient, a whole family together. Alright, you win. Little Tom, do you see? You're still thinking of gaining power through pureblood families, but your descendant has already developed a magic that can exterminate pureblood families with a single click. Horatio and Dumbledore walked out of the old Lestrange family mansion, and Dumbledore still asked doubtfully, Child, didn't you bring me here to set off fireworks? Where are the fireworks? Horatio smiled mysteriously, Headmaster, do you want to see big fireworks or small fireworks? Dumbledore was a bit confused, what do you mean? Horatio said, let Galactron put on a small fireworks show for the headmaster. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge portal appeared behind them, and Galactron walked out of the portal. Dumbledore looked at Galactron, which was 60 meters tall and resembled a sacred white dragon, and exclaimed, Holy cow, you again. Horatio opened a portal, pulling Dumbledore to the top of Galactron's head. It's different. Last time it was just a super monster. This time it's a civilization arbiter. What do you mean? Dumbledore felt a premonition of ill omen when he heard the name. A civilization arbiter means it can judge a planet's civilization, Horatio said proudly. Come on, Galactron, minimum power, put on a show for the headmaster. A white magic circle appeared on Galactron's ponytail, pulling it into the sky. Immediately, the red orb on its chest began to gather energy, then emitted a red laser, accompanied by the magic circle, leveling the Lestrange family's old mansion and the mountains behind it. Horatio reattached Dumbledore's dropped jaw. This is just minimum power. If it fired at full power, this county would probably be gone. Dumbledore looked at the vanished mountains. He really wanted to fly to Nurmengard immediately and cry to Grindelwald. He was truly having a hard time. Voldemort hadn't even been dealt with, and now there was something even more terrifying. Dumbledore suppressed the urge to cry and said to Horatio, Child, thank you for telling me you have such a powerful weapon. You wouldn't use it for anything else, would you? Like destroying the world. Horatio rolled his eyes at Dumbledore. Why would I destroy the world for no reason? It's just that those three pure blood families wanted to target Heather and them, so I built Galactron to protect them and also to be their playmate during the holidays. So you built something that can destroy the world just to protect your pets. Dumbledore inwardly hated those three pure blood families. Isn't there one more? Come on, let's go wipe them out together. Horatio gave an okay gesture, opened a portal in front, and brought Galactron to the Selwyn family's old mansion. After the ruined Legion escorted the Selwyn family members outside the old mansion, Dumbledore said to Horatio, "You deal with their people, and I'll deal with their ancestral land." God of Fire's path. A tornado of flames swept towards the Selwyn family's old mansion. "You forced the little rascal to increase the intensity for me, so I can only increase the intensity for you." The Selwyn family members watched in despair as their home was burned to ashes by the flames. The Selwyn patriarch accused, "Headmaster Dumbledore, you are the greatest wizard, why are you helping the wicked?" Dumbledore didn't want to bother with him. If it weren't for Ariana in his early years, he would have personally dealt with these people long ago. Did they really think he, Dumbledore, was old and couldn't lift a sword anymore? Horatio gave Dumbledore a thumbs up. It seemed the old man was truly pushed to his limits. Then he used legilimency to read the Selwyn patriarch's memories and then gave him a bloodline curse, thus completing a triple kill with the bloodline curse, all with no complaints. Dumbledore saw the Selwyn family annihilated, felt no ripple in his heart, and even wanted to celebrate. "Child, is there anything else? If not, I'm going back to Hogwarts first." Horatio considered it for a moment and then replied, "There is something else. Just now, I read Selwyn's memories and found that he colluded with an official from the Ministry of Magic's Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, wanting to target Nui." "What? Evil Ministry of Magic officials? This old man will personally send you on your way." Dumbledore was anxious, rolled up his sleeves, and prepared to go to the Ministry of Magic to settle accounts with Fudge. Horatio quickly pulled Dumbledore back. "Old man, I want to handle this myself." Dumbledore glanced at Galactron behind him, and alarm bells rang in his heart. "You're not going to drive that thing to London to wipe out the Ministry of Magic, are you? That's London, many people will die." No, do I look like such a violent person? I just want to send them some things, to turn hostility into friendship." Dumbledore's hanging heart finally settled. He patted Horatio's shoulder with relief and said, "All right, good child, I'll leave this matter to you. If they don't cooperate, you can contact me anytime. By the way, what do you want to send them? Do you need my help?" Just some rice I grew, they'll surely love it." "All right, remember, if you encounter any conflict, you must use the phoenix feather I gave you to contact me first." Dumbledore left these words and then apparated away. After Dumbledore left, Horatio returned to his small house through a portal. He picked up Heather, who was resting on the sofa, and stroked her cat head, saying, "Heather, I might have to go to a place and stay for a while. The conditions there are a bit harsh, and I won't be able to take good care of you. I plan to leave you, Isis, Nephthys, and Nui with Fleur for a while. I'll come back for you after I conquer that place." Meow. "No, I want to stay with my master." "No, there are many bad people in that place, I can't bear to take you there," Horatio said seriously. Heather looked very disappointed, but in the end, she agreed to Horatio leaving her with Fleur. A few days later, in a mansion in France, Fleur took Heather and stroked her cat head. Horatio told Fleur the details of caring for Heather and the others, and handed over their daily necessities and regular food. Fleur carefully wrote down these details with a pen, then said, "I've noted all these things. Where are you going? Is there any danger?" "There's no danger for me. To be precise, I am very dangerous to that place." "All right, I know you've always had your own ideas. I'll support whatever you want to do. I'll help you take good care of Heather and the others. Then I'll trouble you, Fleur." Horatio thanked Fleur, then stroked Heather's cat head. "Be good and wait for me to pick you up." Heather didn't want to bother with him, HMPH. "Scumbag, you said we'd always be together, but then you just gave me to another woman." Horatio found Heather's pouting amusing. After saying goodbye to Fleur and the others, he opened a portal and left Fleur's family mansion. After Horatio left, Fleur picked up Heather and led Nui into the house. "Heather, how about I introduce you to my sister?" After Horatio settled Heather and the others, he went to the reception room of the Greengrass family manor, found William Greengrass, and asked him, "Mr. Greengrass, do you know Mr. Walton McNair of the Ministry of Magic's Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures?" William thought for a moment and replied, "Yes, I do. May I ask what you need him for?" It's like this, he and I have a small misunderstanding that needs to be resolved in person. Would it be too much trouble for you to arrange a meeting for me? Certainly. Please give me some time, and I will arrange it for you. All right, I'll await your good news at home. With that, Horatio opened a portal and left the Greengrass family manor. After he left, William Greengrass wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, quickly took out a pen and paper, wrote a letter, and handed it to a house elf. Dad, was Mr. Horatio here? Astoria asked, pushing open the reception room door. Seeing his daughter's excited expression, William Greengrass felt a slight headache. Astoria, Horatio is very dangerous. I don't recommend you get involved with him. Recalling the conversation he had overheard between Horatio and Lucius in a corner a few days ago, and then connecting it with the news he received yesterday about the Ministry of Magic investigating the Selwyn, Shafiq, and Burke family lands being razed to the ground, he came to a terrifying conclusion: Horatio had wiped out those families. Astoria retorted, but I think Mr. Horatio is a good person. He helped me overcome a problem that had bothered me for years, and I always feel like there's something about him that attracts me. William Greengrass sighed, rubbing his forehead. It was over. His little darling was interested in Horatio. Although he wasn't the kind of overprotective father who couldn't bear to see his daughter marry, he was genuinely afraid of Astoria forming a connection with Horatio. It was a very dangerous thing. But he couldn't stop Astoria. Unlike Daphne, Astoria, perhaps due to the influence of the curse, had been very opinionated since childhood and wouldn't easily back down once she had made up her mind. All right, in 2 months you'll be able to go to Hogwarts. Then you can see for yourself what kind of person Horatio really is. William Greengrass decided to let things take their course. Seeing is believing, and perhaps Astoria would form a new opinion of Horatio at school. Astoria bowed to William Greengrass and then exited the reception room. After Astoria closed the door, William Greengrass tapped his fingers on the table, then let out a long sigh. Oh, what troubled times. A few days later, Horatio received a letter from William Greengrass, stating that he had arranged a meeting with Walton McNair and included the agreed-upon time. At the appointed time, Horatio changed into his red cloud cloak and, carrying a sack of rice, arrived in central London. He found a dilapidated red telephone booth, entered it, and dialed the number 62442. Soon, a cold female voice echoed inside the telephone booth. Hello, Ministry of Magic. Please state your name and purpose. Horatio replied, Severus Evans, introduced by Mr. William Greengrass, here to visit Mr. Walton McNair. All right, let me check, the female voice said. After a moment, the female voice spoke again. Mr. Evans, your appointment has been confirmed. Please take the badge and pin it to your chest. Horatio pinned the silver badge that had dropped from the telephone slot to his chest, and then the telephone booth began to descend, arriving in a magnificent hall. In the center of the hall was a fountain, with a group of pure gold statues erected in the middle. Hundreds of lifeless wizards in suits walked towards a row of golden doors at the other end of the hall. Horatio pushed open the telephone booth door and followed the crowd to a sign that read, Security Check. Hello, I'm here to visit Mr. Walton McNair of the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures, Horatio said to a wizard in a blue robe who was reading the Daily Prophet beneath the sign. The wizard sized him up, then scanned Horatio's front, back, and the rice on the ground with a long golden rod. Apparently finding nothing unusual, the wizard asked, Don't you carry a wand when you go out? Horatio subtly comforted Wei and Li, whom he had hidden in a different dimension, and replied, No, magic is not such an inconvenient thing. Isn't it just clapping your hands and whatever you want appears? The wizard rolled his eyes at Horatio and said, The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures is on the 4th floor. He then continued to read the Daily Prophet. You young wizards had best be accompanied by an adult wizard when you go out in the future. Things have been a bit unsettled lately. 3 families were wiped out in a way the Ministry of Magic doesn't understand, he warned. Horatio carried the rice towards the lift, and as he passed the blue-robed wizard, he whispered to him, Thank you for the warning, but is there a possibility that I did it? The blue-robed wizard rolled his eyes. I'd sooner believe the Ministry of Magic will be attacked by terrorists today than believe you did it. Horatio gave him a meaningful smile, then boarded the lift. Nonsense, the blue-robed wizard refocused his attention on the Daily Prophet. Horatio took the lift to the fourth floor of the Ministry of Magic, the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, and found a young lady who looked like a receptionist. Horatio politely asked, "Hello, is Mr. Walton McNair of the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures in?" The receptionist, looking at the oddly dressed young boy, impatiently replied, "Yes, he is. What do you want with him?" "I want to ask him a question." "What question?" Horatio didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took out a speaker, played some music, then spread his arms wide, and finally replied, "How many floors can I carry a sack of rice?" A repulsive force erupted from Horatio, rapidly expanding outwards from him. Everything in its path was instantly destroyed. Wizards who hadn't even reacted were swept up by wood splinters and stones and pushed outwards. Horatio floated in the air. The entire Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures was destroyed, forming a giant spherical cavity. Countless wizards lay groaning amidst the wood and stones. Horatio scanned the groaning wizards in the rubble, finally found his target, and flew towards him. He arrived in front of Walton, stepped on his head, and said sarcastically, "Mr. Walton, I've come to deliver rice to you. When you get down there, please say hello to Mr. Selwyn for me." When Fudge arrived at the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures on the fourth floor with more than a dozen Aurors, Horatio was torturing Walton with a nonverbal, wandless Cruciatus curse. The elite Aurors behind Fudge immediately drew their wands and pointed them at Horatio upon seeing the scene. "Who are you?" Fudge bellowed. "Why are you attacking the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures?" "Ha ha ha, I'm Horatio, a second-year student who just graduated from Hogwarts. I now wish to further my studies in Azkaban, so I'd appreciate it if Minister Fudge could approve my request." Horatio used a levitation charm to float Walton in front of him and replied with a laugh, "Oh, by the way, isn't the Ministry of Magic investigating the extermination of 3 pure-blood families?" "You don't need to investigate, I did it," Fudge said menacingly. "Even if you didn't say it, I would still lock you up in Azkaban. Attack." The elite Aurors behind Fudge simultaneously cast multiple spells at Horatio, but without exception, all of them passed through his body. It could only be said that his divine power was too comprehensive. Although terrified by what was happening before their eyes, the elite Aurors' strong psychological fortitude overcame their fear, and they continued to cast spells at Horatio. "What? Do you want to dance too?" Countless black mists appeared behind Horatio and began to surge towards Walton. When the black mist dispersed, Fudge and the Aurors were horrified to find that Walton had been transformed into an evil undead creature. At the same time, 2 golden portals appeared behind Horatio, and the ruined legion continuously poured out of the portals, clashing with the elite Aurors. Although the elite Aurors were initially terrified by the arrival of the ruined legion, after a period of fighting, they were pleasantly surprised to find that these creatures were quite ordinary in strength. Although they could resurrect and felt no pain, control-type magic such as disarming charms, petrificus totalis, and full-body bind curses could render them incapacitated. Useless. Horatio cursed under his breath, but then he came to terms with it. After all, they were transformed from bottom-tier dark wizards, only capable of dealing with declining pure-blood families, not elite Aurors. Fudge reprimanded, "You cunning villain, surrender now, or I will have the Aurors use unforgivable curses on you." "Ha ha ha, do you think you've won? You've only defeated the cannon fodder, the real boss battle is just beginning now." Horatio finished speaking and floated towards the center of the Ministry of Magic building. Chase. Fudge and the Aurors pursued him to the platform on the 4th floor, but found that Horatio had already flown to the top of the Ministry of Magic's circular space, above the statues in the main hall. "Feel the pain, think about the pain, accept the pain, understand the pain," Horatio said to the terrified wizards below from the air. The wizards below looked at the little boy in the strangely dressed red cloud-black robe in the air, and a bad premonition arose in their hearts. They tried to apparate out of the Ministry of Magic, but found that the space could not be opened no matter what. Those who do not understand pain cannot understand true peace. Now, let the world feel pain. Horatio spread his arms and said, "Almighty push." As he finished speaking, a more powerful repulsive force than before swept through the entire Ministry of Magic. Although the wizards of the Ministry of Magic protected themselves with shield charms in time, they were still sent flying by the repulsive force. The wizards on the upper floors had no time to escape before they were pressed into the stone wall along with the room fragments by the repulsive force. It was only because Horatio held back, otherwise, they would have been crushed into wizard paste by the repulsive force. As the repulsive force ended, the wizards and architectural fragments pressed against the stone wall began to fall towards the hall on the 8th floor. Fortunately, experienced Aurors used cushioning charms in time to catch them, preventing further casualties. Horatio slowly descended to the ground. Fudge, who had just risen from the ruins of the Ministry of Magic, was immediately pressed to the ground by a powerful gravitational force, unable to move. Horatio came before him. Minister Fudge, you kneel first, I have something to ask you. A circle of golden fiendfire surrounded the entire Ministry of Magic. Please send me to Azkaban for a vacation. Remember to send pretty female Aurors to escort me, since this is England, a pure and kind little wizard like me would feel uncomfortable. Horatio clasped his hands together and extended them towards him, signaling him to put handcuffs on him. Minister Fudge, you wouldn't want to be ousted because I destroyed the Ministry of Magic, would you? The fiendfire around the Ministry of Magic began to contract towards the center. The next day, as Dumbledore leisurely sipped tea and read the Daily Prophet in his Hogwarts headmaster's office, he spat a mouthful of salty soda onto the newspaper. The headline of the Daily Prophet boldly read, Horatio Quibble, the strongest little wizard in history, arrested and imprisoned. According to our reporter, Rita Skeeter, Horatio is a powerful, handsome, academically excellent, and kind-hearted second-year Hogwarts student who is good to his teachers and classmates. However, he revealed that Headmaster Dumbledore devised a secret plan to destroy the Ministry of Magic. For this purpose, the evil Headmaster Dumbledore forced him to commit the recent massacre of the 3 families to attract the Ministry of Magic's attention, and then destroyed the Ministry of Magic yesterday. But through the tireless efforts of the great Minister Fudge and the brave Aurors, Horatio was finally defeated, and Dumbledore's conspiracy was thwarted. Today, Horatio Quibble will be escorted to Azkaban prison by Aurors. Dumbledore wiped the tea from his beard and quickly found a phoenix feather, attempting to contact Horatio. To his surprise, the call connected, and Horatio's lazy voice came from within the feather, hello. Old man, what's up? What's up? What do you mean, what's up? Didn't you say to turn swords into plowshares? Why did you directly destroy the Ministry of Magic? Isn't it turning swords into plowshares if I use swords to force them to hand over plowshares? Don't worry, I didn't kill anyone except a few Ministry of Magic officials who colluded with the Selwyn family. At most, they were slightly injured by my large-scale AoE. Is that what I meant? What exactly do you want to do? Hello. Hello. I'm almost at Azkaban, the signal here is bad, I'm hanging up. Horatio threw the phoenix tail feather into an interdimensional space, blocking Dumbledore's harassment. Then he put down the wand in his hand and said to the 2 beautiful witches across the carriage, who were saluting in the French military style, don't be nervous, I just don't like being pointed at with wands, so I'm making you suffer a little. Horatio returned the wands he had just confiscated to them. Tell me, who are you? I feel like you're so weak that I don't even have the interest to bully you. A witch with bubblegum pink hair carefully took her wand back and said, my name is Nymphadora Tonks, and I'm a trainee Auror who just started Auror training. This is trainee Auror random person B, who is in my same year. Horatio clapped his hands, trainee Aurors. Oh, I see, you're expendable. Even if I go berserk and kill you, the Ministry of Magic wouldn't lose anything. Tonks and the other witches' faces darkened. Did he have to be so blunt? If they hadn't been instantly subdued and had their wands taken away by Horatio when they first met him, they would have shown Horatio a thing or two. The Thestrals pulled the carriage carrying Horatio, flying towards a solitary island in the deep, cold waters of the North Sea. Inside the carriage, Horatio and Tonks were playing cards. I didn't expect you to like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! 2. Horatio activated, Shining Flame God's Monument, destroying Tonks, Harpy Lady on the field and banishing 2 cards from her deck. Tonks looked at Horatio's field, with cards like, Surfing Inspector, and, Go Zen Match, set in his back row, and her hair turned red with anger. You're such a banished deck player. Thanks for the compliment. By the way, it's your turn. Go ahead and draw the last card from your deck. Horatio shuffled 3 spell cards from his graveyard back into his deck, drew 3 more cards, and declared the end of his turn. Tonks tremblingly drew the last card from her deck. She focused her eyes and saw it was Harpy's Feather Duster. Why didn't you come out sooner? Tonks' face showed despair. Bystander B looked at Horatio and Tonks playing cards with fear. As expected of dangerous individuals defined by the Ministry of Magic with a danger level of 100x and a bounty of 100 billion berry. Oops, wrong anime, that's from One Piece. They easily pushed the usually energetic Tonks to despair. The carriage flew to the entrance of a tall building. Horatio followed Tonks out of the carriage and arrived at Azkaban, a place that struck fear into the wizarding world but was like a resort to Horatio. Tonks turned to Horatio and asked, "Have you learned the Patronus charm in school?" Horatio shook his head. Dementors were like ghost girls to him. Why would he learn the Patronus charm? Alright, then you must stick close to me. Dementors aren't that easy to deal with. Tonks warned Horatio and nervously led him into Azkaban. It was her first time in Azkaban too, so she was incredibly tense. Upon entering Azkaban, a chilling aura immediately washed over them, turning Tonks' hair white and making all the hairs on her body stand on end. The Dementors wandering Azkaban saw 2 people enter and immediately swooped towards them, like the big bad wolf seeing a lazy lamb. Tonks' face turned pale with fright. It was her first time seeing so many Dementors rushing at her simultaneously. She raised her wand, about to cast the Patronus charm, when she saw Horatio dart out like a big black rat. Horatio pulled out his beloved scythe and lantern from a different dimension and flew towards the Dementors, laughing. Ha 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 ha, they're all mine, all mine. The Dementors saw the scythe and lantern as if they had seen their natural enemy and scattered in terror. Don't run, come back. Horatio shouted. Thick black mist erupted behind him, and countless black hooks stretched out from the mist, grabbing at the fleeing Dementors. The Dementors hit by the hooks struggled endlessly in the air but couldn't break free, being dragged towards Horatio. The prisoners held in Azkaban and Tonks watched this terrifying scene, hearing the Dementors' desperate wails and Horatio's deranged expression, trembling with fear. What in the world was this thing that had been sent to Azkaban? If Fudge had been there, he would surely have regretted sending Horatio to Azkaban. Wasn't this like locking a mouse in a granary? No, it seemed he didn't have a choice. Once all the Dementors were locked in the lantern, Horatio, carrying the lantern with its now brighter green flame and dragging his terrifying scythe, walked up to Tonks. You can go now. When you get back, remember to tell Fudge that Azkaban is mine now. If anyone wants to come in the future, they'll need to apply to me in advance. After he finished speaking, the black mist behind Horatio began to erupt, enveloping the entire Azkaban. Tonks, who had collapsed to the ground in fear, was grabbed by the neck by the black mist, kicked out of Azkaban with a swift boot to her backside, and then the main gate slammed shut. Tonks rubbed her backside and stood up from the ground, looking at the sky above Azkaban, which was now obscured by black mist. The entire isolated island looked as eerie and terrifying as a place where a necromancer lord would reside in a fairy tale. She fled like a wild animal towards the carriage, quickly driving it away from Azkaban. Inside Azkaban, Horatio casually used a crucio on a prisoner who tried to escape in the chaos, grabbing his soul in his hand under the terrified gaze of the other prisoners. Then, he held a pear to his throat and used the sonorous charm to announce, "Greetings, prisoners. I am Horatio Quibble, the new warden of Azkaban. Since I have arrived here, all of you are my assets. This is what happens to anyone who tries to leave Azkaban without the warden's permission." Horatio took out a grinding stone and ground the soul in his hand into soul fragments. Even if you die, I can still capture your souls and torment them until they break. The Death Eaters imprisoned in Azkaban heard the soul's agonizing screams, and any thoughts of escaping to find their master instantly vanished. Where did this devilish young wizard come from? Our master would at most use crucio to give someone a quick end. This young wizard kills people and it's not enough, he wants to torment their souls too. After dealing with the soul, Horatio loudly declared, "From now on, you will call me Warden, sir. Do you understand?" "Understood, Warden, sir." Louder, "Haven't you eaten?" "Understood. Warden, sir." Horatio nodded in satisfaction. He went to the highest floor of Azkaban, moved all the prisoners confined there to other floors, selected a few pleasing cells, tore down the dividing walls in the middle, and hung a sign on the door that read, Warden's Office. After furnishing the office, Horatio sat at a golden desk, grabbed a Dementor from the lantern, and began to study it. Disregarding the Dementor's will, Horatio began to forcibly examine its body and subjected it to many indescribable experiments. A few hours later, Horatio tossed the limp Dementor aside and recorded in his research notes, Dementor, romances, unknown reproductive method, somewhere between a living creature and a ghost, feeds on souls, especially fond of souls with happy memories, can eat other souls but dislikes them. Looking at the Dementor, curled up in a corner like a bullied wife, Horatio had an idea. He took out a scythe and lantern identical to his own, and fused the Dementor with both items plus black mist. Soon after, a skeleton, holding a scythe in its right hand and a lantern in its left, wearing a black robe and burning with green flames, emerged from the black mist. Yes, I was right. Dementor plus scythe plus lantern plus black mist equals Thresh, the chain warden. Horatio snapped his fingers excitedly, looking at Thresh, who was kneeling on one knee before him. Horatio then proceeded to grab several more Dementors and fuse them with black mist and various other items. Dementor plus spear plus black mist equals Callista, the spear of vengeance. Dementor plus centaur skeleton, stolen from the forbidden forest, plus great axe plus black mist equals Hecarim, the shadow of war. Dementor plus speaker plus microphone plus black mist equals Karthus, the deathsinger. Dementor plus shovel plus black mist equals Yorick, the shepherd of souls. Dementor plus armor plus great hammer plus black mist equals Mordekaiser, the iron revenant. After confirming the 6 commanders, Horatio released the remaining Dementors and forcibly injected them with black mist. This time, the black mist didn't change the Dementors' appearance but merely made green flames burn on their bodies. Horatio looked at the 6 commanders kneeling uniformly and the transformed Dementors. He instructed the 6 commanders to each lead a squad of Dementors to patrol Azkaban Island. Anyone attempting to escape or enter would be killed without mercy. At Hogwarts, in the Headmaster's office, Fudge was clinging to Dumbledore's leg, wailing, Headmaster Dumbledore, what kind of monster have you taught? He single-handedly challenged and destroyed the entire Ministry of Magic, forced me to send him to Azkaban with a fiendfire, and now Azkaban is completely out of control. And the key thing is, he's only in his 2nd year. Dumbledore calmly took a sip of tea and said, Fudge, you are the Minister for Magic. These matters should be resolved by you. Fudge stared, incredulously at Dumbledore. After a long moment, he left with a huff, muttering, Dumbledore, you'll regret this. Dumbledore calmly finished his tea, summoned Fawkes, and apparated to Ermengarde, finding the room where Grindelwald was imprisoned. After opening the door, Dumbledore hugged Grindelwald's leg and wailed, Gellert, I'm having such a hard time. Tom Riddle started a wizarding war and created Horcruxes, and fighting him has already exhausted my mind. I finally managed to choose Harry Potter as my successor to fight against Voldemort. Now, Horatio has appeared out of nowhere. In his 2nd year, he created a monster that destroyed Hogwarts, and now he's made an upgraded version called the Civilization Arbiter, which is fully capable of destroying the world. You pursued the ideal of wizards ruling muggles, Voldemort sought immortality and power, but Horatio. He's purely doing it for fun. I truly have no idea what to do with him. Grindelwald comforted Dumbledore, but also felt something was off. When he had seen visions of the future before, Horatio clearly wasn't this powerful. Why had the situation suddenly changed so drastically? Albus, I'd like to see this child, if I may. Grindelwald asked, helping Dumbledore up. Dumbledore considered it. Grindelwald and Voldemort combined would be like playing house in front of Horatio. It wasn't about Grindelwald's ambitions anymore. What if Horatio, in a good mood, decided to do something big to the world? Both wizards and muggles would be finished. Dumbledore gazed at Grindelwald with deep affection. No, Gellert, you'll come back to Hogwarts with me directly and be my headmaster's assistant. If Horatio ever does something big, at least we can die together. Grindelwald looked into Dumbledore's affectionate eyes and said, all right, Albus, we'll die together. Their hands tightly clasped. If Horatio were present, he would surely suggest his permanent male-to-female potion. Harry, Malfoy, and Ron all highly recommend it, with no bad reviews, and it's only 50 galleons. Of course, Horatio had no idea that Dumbledore was preparing for a Twilight romance. He was currently very happy, acting as the Emperor of Azkaban, playing Squid Game with the prisoners every day. Come on, today we're playing red light, green light. Those who get caught will be punished by the warden. Horatio announced from the second-floor platform, looking down at the Azkaban prisoners who had been herded to the first floor. The Azkaban prisoners were surrounded by the 6 Grand Leaders and their Dementor army, not daring to make a move. Yesterday, a Death Eater named Andy Dufresne tried to dig a tunnel to escape Azkaban while they weren't paying attention, but he despairingly discovered that the entire island and the surrounding sea were sealed off by black mist. The moment he touched the black mist, he was discovered by the 6 guards and personally brought back by Thresh. In front of the Azkaban prisoners, Horatio had the 6 Grand Leaders take turns executing Andy. Why take turns? Because Horatio kept resurrecting him and executing him again. In this way, the Azkaban prisoners witnessed him being smashed into a pulp by Mordekaiser's hammer, impaled by Callista's spear, gnawed into a skeleton by Yorick's ghouls, beheaded by Hecarim's great axe, annihilated by Karthus's requiem, and finally, Thresh extracted his soul and fed it to the Dementors. Having witnessed Horatio's cruel methods, all the prisoners were obedient and dared not harbor any thoughts of defying him. The game will be an elimination round, with one final winner. This winner can make one request to me, the warden. Of course, the final interpretation of whether this request can be fulfilled rests with me, the warden, Horatio continued to announce. Sirius Black, mingling among the prisoners, heard Horatio's words, and a glimmer of hope appeared in his hollow eyes. He murmured, James, Lily. The rules of this game are, when Karthus has his back to you, you can move. When Karthus turns to face you, you must not move. The slightest movement will result in elimination. Reaching Karthus is considered a victory and allows you to proceed to the next round of the game. After expanding the first floor of Azkaban to 3,000 meters with an undetectable extension charm, the Dementors herded the prisoners to the edge of the wall. Karthus stood at the other end, with his back to the prisoners. Game start. With Horatio's command, Karthus began to chant, 1, 2, 3, red light, green light, no talking, no moving. The prisoners began to frantically run towards Karthus. As Karthus's song ended, he slowly turned around. Prisoners who couldn't stop in time were caught by the Dementors observing nearby and had their souls absorbed until they were unable to move, then were thrown back into their cells like trash. By the third round, Bellatrix Lestrange couldn't hold on and moved slightly, immediately being snatched by a Dementor. Bellatrix seemed a bit panicked after being caught. She loudly shrieked, my master, Voldemort, will definitely return. He will surely avenge me. By then, you and your family and friends will all be cruelly killed by him. Voldemort. It's over, you idiot, you've made me a powerful enemy. Horatio, hearing her shouts, stopped the Dementors. He came before Bellatrix with interest, stepping on her head, and pulled out the soul of Voldemort, which was trapped in his lantern. He held it out to her, chirp, chirp. Little doggy, look what this is. Bellatrix felt the familiar aura from the soul and immediately became flustered. Master. That's right, this is your master, Horatio said happily. Let me test your loyalty, how about it? Mordekaiser, go to the Weasleys' house and bring me a pig. Then Horatio opened a portal to the Weasleys' house and threw a bag of sickles to Mordekaiser. When Mordekaiser returned to Azkaban with a clean white pig, Horatio, in front of Bellatrix, pulled the pig's soul out of its body and then stuffed Voldemort's soul into it. Come on, quickly call it, master. After all, even though it's a pig, the soul inside is your master, Horatio said happily, leading the pig in front of Bellatrix. Bellatrix saw this scene and began to curse Horatio wildly. Horatio showed no concern for her curses. In fact, the more fiercely she cursed, the happier he became. Ha 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 ha, don't worry, I won't kill you. Even if you commit suicide, I'll drag you back, because I want you to witness with your own eyes how your master humbly licks the soles of my shoes like a dog. Now, for a small punishment, Crucio. Bellatrix writhed on the ground, tormented by intense pain. After a long time, she finally couldn't bear it anymore and passed out. Useless. You can't even endure this. Callista, throw her and her master back into the cell. I want to see if she'll starve her master to death, ha 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 ha. Horatio's almost maniacal laughter struck immense fear into the prisoners who had not yet been eliminated. Looking at Horatio's back, they felt as if they were seeing a demon sent from hell to torment humanity. At that moment, their faith in Merlin seemed to waver slightly. Every day when I wake up, the first thing I do is cheer myself on. Every time I say Avada, I follow it with a big bite. Magic wand, look at me, where is my green light? In the Hall of Azkaban, which had been expanded by an undetectable extension charm, a burst of music rang out. Horatio led the 6 marshals in a dance, followed by the Dementor Legion and the prisoners. Unleash my Avada. Horatio sang, raising his pair. A green light split in the air, striking several prisoners who weren't dancing seriously. The prisoners were startled and danced even harder, following Horatio and the 6 marshals. When the music ended, Horatio wiped the sweat from his forehead, produced by burning calories, and turned to the prisoners behind him, saying, "Phew, a morning workout feels great." I felt everyone's passion and enthusiasm, except for those few lying on the ground. Sirius curled his lip. Yes, you feel great, but we're suffering. Although he had successfully completed the first round of the game yesterday with his excellent reactions and will, seeing the failures around him whose souls had been sucked out, he felt a bit shaky due to soul damage. Even so, they were still forcibly woken up in the morning to dance, and if they didn't dance well, they would be attacked by the killing curse. Though Horatio later revived them after tormenting their souls for a bit. While Sirius found Horatio cruel, he felt no sympathy for these prisoners. Except for a very few, like him, who were wrongly imprisoned, most were getting what they deserved, especially the Death Eaters. They used to enjoy tormenting muggles and muggle wizards, now being tormented by Horatio, he could only say they deserved it. He had concluded a pattern. As long as they didn't try to escape, Horatio would revive them even if he killed them. If they were caught trying to escape, not only would they be tortured to death, but their souls would be devoured by the 6 marshals and the Dementors. Based on the above reasons, Sirius had no thought of escaping, let alone seeing that Horatio could truly revive people killed by the killing curse. His hope grew stronger and stronger, and he now eagerly anticipated the upcoming games. Come, it's time for our daily happy game. Those who won yesterday, step forward. Those who failed, consciously go to the hamster wheel in the back to run and generate electricity. The prisoners who failed yesterday shivered when they saw the hamster wheel in the back and the Dementors holding whips guarding it. They stumbled towards the hamster wheel and began running inside non-stop. The Dementors nearby would whip anyone who dared to slack off. Today's game is to carve on a biscuit with a needle. Originally, I wanted you to play with dismantling candy patterns, but considering you are all wizards and need a higher difficulty challenge, I changed it to biscuit carving. If the biscuit breaks or the drawing isn't standard enough, it's considered a failure. Horatio had the Dementors give each remaining prisoner an A4-sized crisp biscuit and a needle. As for what to draw, that depends on your luck. Horatio had Callista carry a box in front of the prisoners, letting them draw their own pictures. The result, of course, was a mix of joy and sorrow. Sirius glanced at his drawing of Mona Lisa's smile, and felt his world collapse. Just as he despaired, he saw the person next to him draw The Last Supper, and immediately felt much more balanced. What the hell is this? Is this something a human can draw on a biscuit? Antonin Dolohov threw the biscuit and his drawing of Along the River during the Qingming Festival to the ground. Isn't it just having my soul sucked out by a Dementor? Come on, I'm not afraid of you. My master will avenge me. Everyone else, start drawing. You have 5 hours. Those who don't finish will be punished. Horatio ignored the others who were lying on the ground carving on biscuits with needles. He walked over to Antonin, who had been pulled out by Thresh. I say, are all you brain-dead loyalists of Lord Voldemort so brave? What do you think would happen if I were to whip Lord Voldemort every day and tell him that you brain-dead loyalists told me to do it? Antonin's face turned pale with fright, and he knelt, pleading, I'm sorry, Warden sir, I was too arrogant just now. Please don't do that. Ha ha ha, do you know why I made yesterday's losers run on the hamster wheel? Horatio asked Antonin with a smile. Antonin had a bad feeling. I don't know. Horatio grabbed his hair and said to him, because I'm very curious, the maximum voltage a muggle can withstand is 36 volts, so what about a wizard? No, Antonin was forcibly dragged to an electric chair by a Dementor and tied down. Once the Dementor had him secured, Horatio walked to a voltage adjustment device. Ready. Here we go, let's try 36 volts first. Antonin instantly convulsed, foamed at the mouth, and lost control of his bladder and bowels. Indeed, a wizard's tolerance is a bit stronger than a muggle's. So, let's increase it to 72 volts. Antonin died instantly, and the smell of cooking meat filled the air. Ah, you can't handle this already. I thought you Death Eaters would be much stronger than muggles. Is that all you've got? Horatio revived Antonin and said to him happily, hee hee, a wizard's tolerance is between 36 volts and 72 V. What is the exact number? We'll experiment slowly. He then adjusted the voltage to 71 volts and continued his experiment. Finally, after unremitting efforts, Horatio concluded that a wizard's maximum voltage tolerance is below 48 V. Horatio made a note and turned to look at the failures who had accidentally broken their biscuits. Do you also want to participate in this great experiment? The failures shook their heads like rattles and desperately pleaded with the Dementors escorting them, begging the Dementors to suck their souls. A week later, Callista reported to Horatio, Warden sir, some more prisoners have been tortured to insanity, and the stock of calming draft is insufficient. Understood. I'll brew another batch of calming draft later. How is Bellatrix Lestrange? I feel she's completely mad. She's hugging that pig and keeps calling it, my dear master. Did you give her calming draft yesterday? Yes, but it's still the same. Then she's fooling it. Go give her a Crucio later. Don't forget the daily routine. Horatio closed his research notebook, on the cover of which was boldly written, on how to destroy the will of wizard supremacists while they are conscious. Grindelwald, who was helping Dumbledore organize documents in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, felt a chill down his spine, as if some dirty thing had set its eyes on him. Gellert, what's wrong? Dumbledore noticed Grindelwald's unusual behavior. Grindelwald wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Nothing, I just suddenly had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall us. An alarm bell rang in Dumbledore's heart. Last time he had this feeling, he didn't pay attention, and Horatio gave him a big surprise. Now that Grindelwald had this feeling, it must be Horatio secretly plotting something. Dumbledore stood up and said to Grindelwald, Gellert, didn't you want to meet that child? Let's go to Azkaban to find him and deliver his Hogwarts prison notice. We can't let him get away with it in Azkaban any longer. Dumbledore originally wanted to apparate to Horatio's location via Phoenix, but Fawkes told him that the entire space of Azkaban and the surrounding sea area was blocked, making it impossible to apparate there. Dumbledore wasn't surprised at all. After all, that little rascal could block time and space, so blocking a mere space was child's play. So he summoned a carriage, pulled Grindelwald into it, and flew towards Azkaban. At the same time, a knock sounded on Horatio's office door. Sirius entered the office after receiving Horatio's permission. After several days of intense gaming, Sirius, driven by his conviction, ultimately stood victorious in the Squid Game. Therefore, he was allowed to go to Horatio's office and make a request. Warden, I won the game. Will you honor your promise? Sirius kept his attitude very humble, as he had a favor to ask of Horatio. Tell me what you want first, and I'll consider whether to agree depending on the situation. Horatio scrutinized Sirius with interest. To be honest, when he designed the Squid Game, he never thought anyone would be able to complete the challenge. He didn't expect someone to actually complete it under such immense pressure. Sirius hesitated for a moment before saying, I hope you can resurrect two people. Who? James Potter and Lily Potter. Oh, aren't those the parents of my dearest house elf Unit 2? What's your relationship with them? Sirius exclaimed in surprise, you know Harry. Horatio replied, yes, he and I are classmates in Gryffindor. Sirius never dreamed that Horatio was in the same year as Harry. He knew Horatio was young, but not this young, and that such a brutal young wizard was in Gryffindor. He felt his worldview was about to collapse. Sirius suppressed his urge to complain. Harry's parents and I were friends, and I'm also Harry's godfather. But I trusted the wrong person, which led to their deaths. I'm filled with remorse, which is why I willingly allowed myself to be imprisoned in Azkaban. Oh, gossip. Tell me about it. I love gossip the most. If you entertain me, I might agree to your request. Horatio had Callista cut a watermelon, and he gnawed on a piece, waiting for Sirius's story. Sirius began to recount the story of their generation and how he was imprisoned. Horatio found it uninteresting after listening. The gossip wasn't sweet. Boring. I thought it would be some kind of love-hate drama, but it's just this. Pure betrayal out of cowardice. Horatio suddenly thought of something. As the wormtail you mentioned him. Horatio took out the fly-shaped camera he developed for animagus transformations and played a video secretly filmed in Ron's dormitory, showing her sleeping with Scabbers. It's him. It's him. It's definitely him, Sirius exclaimed. Our friend Little Neja. Horatio couldn't help but sing along. Ahem, don't mind such details. Horatio had a bold idea. Callista, bring our friend Little Rita. Bah, I'm still affected. Bring Rita Skeeter over. I want her to write an article. As for how Horatio knew Rita Skeeter's location, it can only be said that he formed a deep friendship with her during the Ministry of Magic's destruction interview. Under his threats, under his kind words, Rita gladly accepted his gift. Callista followed the order and entered the portal Horatio opened to capture Rita Skeeter. Soon, Callista, holding Rita Skeeter by the scruff of her neck, arrived in Azkaban through the portal. Horatio handed her the video and told her about the relationship between Wormtail and Harry's parents. I want you to write an article about Wormtail, Ron, and Harry. The more outrageous, the better. For example, she looks pure and innocent, but secretly she is. Horatio didn't finish his sentence, leaving room for Rita's imagination, to avoid being noticed by the great river crab god. Rita tremblingly took the video, recorded Horatio's words, and said she would definitely write an article that would satisfy him. Horatio nodded in satisfaction, patted her shoulder, and said, if you do this well, I'll have Fudge promote you and give you a raise. If you mess it up, you'll probably have to stay here forever. Rita nodded fearfully and, led by Callista, left Azkaban to complete the task Horatio had assigned. You're too cruel. How will that girl live? Sirius heard Horatio and Rita's conversation and realized that the girl's relationship with Harry was definitely not ordinary. Although he really wanted to kill Wormtail, he felt bad about damaging the reputation of a girl who was close to Harry. It's fine. She's already been socially dead once when she was a he. She has experience with this, Horatio said indifferently. She was a he. Don't mind such details. After rambling for so long, it's time to get back to the main topic. You want to resurrect the Potters, right? Sirius straightened up at Horatio's words, his eyes resolute. Yes, I want to make up for my regret. Please, Warden, I am willing to give everything. Horatio tapped the table and replied, you don't need to worry about Lily Potter. Someone has already paid the price for her. As for James Potter, yes, but he needs to be under Azkaban's management after his resurrection. In Azkaban, I can resurrect my assets free of charge. No. Sirius was quite happy to hear that Lily had already been reserved for resurrection and didn't dwell on who that person was. But when he heard that James's resurrection required him to reside in Azkaban, he immediately objected. This place was not fit for humans, especially under Horatio's management. Hearing Sirius's refusal, Horatio Little Bear waved his hand. Then there's nothing I can do, unless you're willing to trade the relics of the 4 Hogwarts founders. By the way, I already have the sword of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw's diadem. You need to find Slytherin's locket or Hufflepuff's cup. Sirius deflated. If he could leave Azkaban, he would go all out to find them, but now he was still locked up in Azkaban. He knew Horatio wouldn't let him leave, even if he thought about it with his toes. Then, can you help treat Frank and Alice Longbottom? They were tortured to insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange. Sirius remembered his comrades in the Order of the Phoenix and thought of Horatio developing the calming draught to treat the prisoners as insanity, so he made this request. Horatio pondered for a moment. Why didn't I think of that? As long as I threaten, friendly negotiate with Neville using the calming draught, force him to sign a contract, wouldn't House Elf Unit 1 be upgraded to permanent? Thinking of this, Horatio replied, no, someone will pay the price for them. Sirius breathed a sigh of relief. No matter who paid the price, it was good that the Longbottoms could receive treatment. Neville, does anyone ever consider my feelings? Sirius made his final request. Then, Warden, can you help me catch Peter Pettigrew and bring him to Azkaban? Horatio nodded. Yes, once Rita finishes her business, I can allow you to personally apprehend Peter Pettigrew. Then, Horatio turned to Callista and instructed, notify Thresh to take his squad of Dementors to the Weasleys' house, keep a close eye on that rat, and apprehend him immediately after Rita finishes her business. Horatio said to Sirius, you're done. I'll notify you when Thresh makes the arrest, and you just cooperate with Thresh's actions. Sirius bowed to Horatio, said thank you, and then turned and left the office. After Sirius left, Horatio continued to study the book, Curseology, From Zero to Curse Lord. Our perspective shifts to Dumbledore. He and Grindelwald had already arrived in the sea near Azkaban, and through the carriage window, they saw the sea shrouded in black mist. Holy crap, that little rascal made such a big mess. Dumbledore had anticipated Horatio causing trouble, but he hadn't expected him to make such a huge mess. Grindelwald also felt a lingering fear looking at the ominous black mist and couldn't help but worry for Dumbledore. This was beyond the scope of a Dark Lord, wasn't it? The Thestrals pulling the carriage dared not enter the eerie black mist no matter what. There was no other way. Dumbledore could only take out a small boat and, together with Grindelwald, row towards Azkaban. As soon as they touched the black mist, Azkaban's 6 great commanders sensed them and flew towards their invasion direction with the Dementor army. Dumbledore and his companions didn't realize that the 6 great commanders and the Dementor army had quietly surrounded them. They were lost. In this extremely dense black mist, Lumos was completely ineffective. Grindelwald seemed to suddenly see something and pulled Dumbledore aside, watch out. As soon as his voice fell, a green spear shot towards their original position. Before they could recover, a tall, armored monster arrived at their boat, raised a large hammer, and smashed it down onto their small boat. Dumbledore quickly used a shield charm to block the attack. The immense force slammed against the shield charm's barrier, creating countless cracks, barely holding off the blow. Grindelwald was about to help Dumbledore when he was pulled into the Death Realm by Mordekaiser for a one-on-one duel. Gellert. Before Dumbledore could recover from Grindelwald's disappearance, he heard the sound of hooves. Hecarim, wielding a large axe, charged towards him across the water with the Dementor army. Fawkes, the Phoenix, quickly transformed into flames to block Hecarim's charge. Although he successfully blocked Hecarim's initial assault, he was already severely wounded and was slammed into the black mist, disappearing from sight. Fawkes. Dumbledore quickly used the Patronus charm to try and drive away the Dementors that surrounded him, but unfortunately, the Dementors modified by the black mist were no longer afraid of the Patronus charm. Just then, Thresh grabbed Fawkes and emerged from the black mist. Callista, Hecarim, Yorick, and Karthus, with a sky full of Dementors, surrounded Dumbledore. Dumbledore quickly performed a French military salute, I am Horatio's headmaster. You must be Horatio's subordinates. Thresh and Callista exchanged glances, then Callista seemed to be contacting someone, and finally, she nodded to Thresh. Thresh spoke, come, human. Warden Horatio is waiting for you in Azkaban. Grindelwald was also released from the Death Realm. Mordekaiser casually brushed off the blue fiendfire on his body and escorted Dumbledore and his companions to Azkaban. Grindelwald still wanted to attack the 6 great commanders, but Dumbledore pressed him down. Dumbledore shook his head at Grindelwald and followed the footsteps of the 6 great commanders to Azkaban. Upon reaching Azkaban's isolated island, the 6 great commanders discussed for a moment. Callista would lead Dumbledore and his companions to Horatio, while the others dispersed to patrol Azkaban. Callista pushed open Azkaban's main gate and led them into the main hall. Dumbledore was surprised to find the Azkaban prisoners constantly running in individual hamster wheels, with a Dementor standing nearby, occasionally whipping the prisoners inside. In front of the hamster wheels was a row of electric chairs, with several prisoners tied to them, undergoing electrocution. Some prisoners were tied to a spinning wheel, while a blindfolded Dementor threw flying knives at them. Other prisoners were tied to a bungee platform, with raging fiendfire below. Dementors continuously pushed them down like fishing and then pulled them back up. Listening to the desperate wails echoing throughout Azkaban, Grindelwald looked at Dumbledore. Are these the students you taught? I feel like a law-abiding citizen compared to him. Dumbledore wiped cold sweat from his brow. How did that little rascal become so cruel? Headmaster Dumbledore. Sirius saw Callista leading Dumbledore and his companions into the hall. Why are you here? Dumbledore. The prisoners present, hearing the familiar name, disregarded the Dementor's obstruction and ran towards Dumbledore. Grindelwald, seeing the commotion, quickly shielded Dumbledore behind him. He was about to burn these people with fiendfire when he saw them all kneeling on the ground. Please, take us out. We will never do evil again. Once we get out, we will definitely turn over a new leaf and contribute to the development of the wizarding world. From now on, we will never dare to discriminate against Muggle-born wizards and will provide help to Muggles in need, only asking that you take us out. Looking at the dark wizards kneeling before him, constantly kowtowing, Dumbledore roared internally, "Little rascal, what exactly did you do to them? Why are even Death Eaters kneeling and surrendering to me?" In the end, Dumbledore still didn't pay attention to the prisoners kneeling before him. Although Dumbledore felt that Horatio's methods were too cruel, these people weren't good people either, so they deserved it. Led by Callista, Dumbledore and Grindelwald arrived at the office on the top floor of Azkaban. Callista knocked on the office door. "Warden, the people have been brought." "Yo, old man, what brings you and your old lover to my territory?" Horatio watched Dumbledore enter the office with Grindelwald, calculating the probability of defeating the two old men combined. "What's the difference between my chances of winning and seeking death? The combined power of the Dark and White Lords is terrifying. I'll tell Rita to report that the Dark and White Lords have teamed up to rule Azkaban later." Dumbledore was unaware of Horatio's schemes to trick him in various ways and asked, "Child, what are you doing? Why are you torturing these prisoners? Has your heart been affected by dark magic?" Huh. Horatio looked at his dark magic talent, which was as high as 11 points on the panel. "That big lowly, dark magic, can affect me. I'm doing this purely for fun." Dumbledore didn't expect dark magic to have no effect on Horatio at all. "Are you a natural Dark Lord?" "Me. The Dark Lord." Horatio pointed to himself. "What kind of trash is the Dark Lord? I am clearly." Horatio pressed the music play button on the stereo on the desk, singing and dancing. "I am a sunny and cheerful big boy, a sunny and cheerful big boy. My only specialty is causing trouble. Look at the big show I'm putting on." Dumbledore watched Horatio, who was enjoying himself, speechless. His hanging heart finally died. The Dark Lord was still manageable. His actions had a purpose, allowing for anticipation and planning. But for someone with Horatio's bizarre thought process, he truly had no solution. Grindelwald saw his old lover's pained expression, took his hand, and said to Horatio, "Little devil, are you really doing all this just for fun?" Horatio was stunned for a moment, then his eyes darted around, and an idea came to him. So he turned off the stereo, used the face-changing technique he learned in his previous life, and put on a serious face as he said to Grindelwald, "You must be Grindelwald. I grew up listening to your stories. Don't ask where I heard them. I strongly agree with your philosophy that the strong should rule the weak, and since wizards are stronger than Muggles, they should be above Muggles." Then Horatio's tone shifted, and he looked at Grindelwald with a sinister smile. "So, how should gods treat wizards? I hate this world." Countless black mists erupted behind Horatio, and at the same time, the black mist outside Azkaban began to surge, continuously extending outwards. Dumbledore and Grindelwald were on high alert, a doomsday-like pressure pressing heavily on their hearts. Horatio's voice came from the impenetrable black mist. "When the black mist covers the entire world, Ghadenathor will descend upon this world. By then, both wizards and Muggles will become its slaves." A terrifying roar came from the ocean, and a giant conch slowly emerged from the sea. Of course, it was a fake. Horatio wouldn't dare to bring the real one into this world, or else everything would truly be over. Dumbledore and Grindelwald watched in despair as Ghadenathor's terrifying figure slowly approached Azkaban, their hands tightly clasped together, ready to face the arrival of the apocalypse. Just then, Horatio, emitting a faint white light, came to their side and handed 3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards to Dumbledore. "Headmaster, it's too late. I can no longer suppress my other self. Only by fusing these 3 cards together can Ghadenathor be stopped." Dumbledore took the 3 cards and asked urgently, "What should I do?" Only the most passionate love can fuse them together. The rest is up to you. Horatio said before disappearing. Dumbledore held the 3 cards, looking deeply at Grindelwald. Gellert. Grindelwald also looked deeply at Dumbledore. "I understand, Albus." Then they clasped each other's hands tightly and pressed their foreheads together. Dumbledore was the first to say, "I love you." Grindelwald immediately followed, "I love you too." As soon as their voices fell, the 3 cards in Dumbledore's hand burst into a strong golden light, slowly flying above Azkaban and dispelling the surrounding black mist. Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, and the Winged Dragon of Ra roared as they flew out of the cards, intertwining in the air to form a giant halo. A sacred goddess emerged from the halo. Her arrival dispelled the black mist in the sky. Herakti, the creator of light, descended above Azkaban. Herakti raised her hands and said, "Toilet cleaner," to Gatinethor. A strong beam of light erupted from her hands, striking Gatinethor. Gatinethor roared unwillingly, but was still enveloped by the intense light. The light continuously dissolved its body, and finally, Gatinethor disappeared within the radiance. After destroying Gatinethor, Herakti slowly vanished into the air, turning into 3 cards that flew towards Horatio, who was observing from the shadows. Horatio looked at the somewhat dim cards of the 3 Egyptian gods. This wave of special effects consumed a lot of faith power, but capturing these precious recordings was worth it. Putting away the video he secretly recorded, Horatio had already thought of the headline for Rita's news report, "Shocking. The Dark and White Lords join forces to rule Azkaban, only to use it as their rendezvous point." Horatio returned to the office and looked at the 2 still passionate individuals. "Yo, are you still savoring the confession from earlier? Do you want me to provide a wedding venue?" Dumbledore and Grindelwald's faces darkened as they realized Horatio had orchestrated everything. "So you went to all this trouble just to play Cupid?" Dumbledore quipped. "Of course," Horatio said, patting his own shoulder, transforming himself into a little angel with white wings, a golden halo above his head, and a small heart-shaped bow in his hand. Horatio aimed the heart-shaped arrow in his hand at Dumbledore and Grindelwald and shot it. "Tell me, wasn't I brilliant?" Dumbledore and Grindelwald exchanged a smile. They both caught the heart-shaped arrow and said, "Brilliant." Cupid. Horatio nodded with satisfaction. He hoped these 2 old men wouldn't bother Rita when she wrote the report later. "So, you've come all this way just to deliver my admission letter?" Horatio asked, holding the envelope Dumbledore had given him. "Yes, you've had enough fun outside. It's time to return to school," Dumbledore said sternly. "Huh. Last year you were eager for the holidays to start and practically kicked me out of school. This year you're in such a hurry to get me back?" Horatio asked, looking confused. Dumbledore felt as if a boomerang had hit the back of his head and immediately roared, "You weren't this outrageous last year. Who knew that in less than one holiday, you little rascal, would wipe out pure blood families, attack the British Ministry of Magic, and conquer Azkaban? Even Gellert and Voldemort took years to develop to that point. You're getting agitated, see? You're getting agitated again," Horatio said happily, looking at Dumbledore's face, contorted from stress. "I am the omnipotent Ahotan lamp. Perhaps if you offer me 3 galleons, I can grant your wish." Dumbledore, with a straight face, tossed 3 galleons onto Horatio's desk. "I wish right now that you'd hurry back to school." Horatio tossed 6 galleons onto the desk. "Then I wish to return to school after I've had enough fun." Grindelwald glared at Horatio. "Are you trying to exploit a bug here?" Horatio immediately glared back. "And you, old man, why aren't you staying put in your Nurmengard? Why are you running to my Azkaban? What, are you preparing to exchange learning experiences?" Dumbledore quickly restrained the almost uncontrollable Grindelwald. "This is my newly hired headmaster's assistant, specially brought from Nurmengard to help me clean up the messes you've made." Dumbledore had originally wanted to team up with Grindelwald to see if they could stop Horatio, but it now seemed they might not be able to defeat Horatio even together. Horatio looked at Dumbledore suspiciously. "I strongly suspect you brought Grindelwald out to arrest me, but I have no proof." Dumbledore broke out in a cold sweat. No, please empathize with this centenarian. I'm usually very busy with official duties and simply don't have the energy to clean up all your messes." It's perfectly normal to ask my old friend for help, isn't it? Horatio was even more unconvinced. Don't Professor McGonagall usually handle all your official duties? I think you just want to make things difficult for me, Fat Tiger. Say no more, let's get out our wands and duel. Although Horatio only had a 99.99% chance of winning against a 200-year-old geezer, they had pushed him this far. It wouldn't be Horatio if he didn't act. Dumbledore quickly saluted like a judge. All right, I admit I just wanted to be with Gellert, that's why I brought him out. Horatio breathed a sigh of relief. That's better, why didn't you say so earlier? I wouldn't laugh at you. There's nothing more beautiful than a sunset romance, after all. Speaking of which, when are you two getting married? I'm looking forward to the feast. Dumbledore said, you don't need to worry about that. You should just obediently return to Hogwarts. Your friends and classmates will be waiting for you there. They'll be looking forward to my return. Horatio was skeptical. Perhaps no one except Hermione would be eager to see him again, he had that much self-awareness. Horatio thought for a moment. It's fine if I go back, but since Grindelwald can be a headmaster's assistant, then it's reasonable for me to be the head of the fifth house, right? Dumbledore was a bit bewildered. You want to be the head of the fifth house. You want to establish your own house. What kind of house? Horatio pointed to his feet. Well, isn't this a ready-made house? I'll move Azkaban next to Hogwarts later, right in the middle of the Black Lake. Dumbledore instantly bristled, transforming into a Spinosaurus. You want to move Azkaban to Hogwarts? No, absolutely not. All right, I know it's not appropriate, Horatio waved his hand indifferently. If I can't be the head of the fifth house at Hogwarts, then I'll just play around as the Earth's planetary ruler. Horatio opened a portal, pulling Galatron to the sea next to Azkaban. He commanded Callista, Callista, prepare yourself. Tomorrow, first take Galatron to raise London to the ground. Then, you and the other commanders will lead the Dementor army to officially invade England, cross the English Channel to invade France, then sweep across all of Europa, and finally conquer the entire world. Old man, don't you think my plan is a bit imperfect? How about I craft a few more Galatrons? Horatio turned to Grindelwald again and said, Old partner, this is my first time conquering the world, so I might lack some experience. Would you mind offering some guidance? Many thanks. Sweeping across Europa, becoming myself again. Dumbledore quickly restrained the somewhat tempted Grindelwald and said to Horatio, Child, you don't have to be so extreme. It's just a fifth house head, isn't it? I agree. But child, every head of house must also teach a subject. What do you want to teach? That's simple, alchemy, of course. I'll personally teach students how to craft nuclear bombs by hand, Horatio said. If alchemy doesn't work, I'll teach dark arts. The Cruciatus Curse, Chain Lightning, and Avada Chain Lightning are my unique skills, they'd be making a huge profit learning those. If that's still not an option, curse breaking works too. Bloodline curses are more than enough for students to study for a long time. Dumbledore didn't know why a scene appeared before his eyes. When Voldemort led the Death Eaters to return and invade Hogwarts, students would be carrying nuclear bombs and casually raising their wands to cast a green light. The Death Eaters at the front would fall like mown wheat, and the students at the back would drag the fallen Death Eaters to Hogwarts to cast bloodline curses, directly giving them a family tree erasing game. Dumbledore shivered. No, this scene was too beautiful, it absolutely couldn't happen. Child, being a head of house doesn't necessarily require teaching a course. But what about the students in your house? I don't think anyone would want to go to Azkaban. That's simple, aren't the ones happily mingling with the Dementors down there the students of Azkaban House? Horatio pointed to the prisoners outside, being tormented by Dementors. You want Azkaban prisoners and Hogwarts students to attend classes together. Uh-huh. To be precise, they'll enroll with the first-year new students. After going through the process, they'll be sorted into my house. Am I crazy or is this world crazy? You actually want Azkaban prisoners to re-enroll at Hogwarts as first-year new students. Don't worry, I'll make sure they're well shackled and escorted to class by Dementors. Isn't that enough? Of course not. Alright then. I'll just slaughter them all later and feed their souls to the Dementors. Useless trash. If they can't help me win the House Cup from Professor McGonagall, they can provide food for my Dementors. I'll then craft a book of admittance myself. It's perfectly reasonable for the head of house to personally guide young wizards into the magical world, right? At most, I'll just threaten to kill their entire families if they don't join Azkaban. Dumbledore was speechless. He always felt cornered by Horatio's house-demolishing theories. Whenever he suggested taking down a ceiling, Horatio always had a backup plan to blow up the entire house, and the key was that he could actually do it. No, I can't let him corner me like this, Dumbledore thought to himself. Then he decisively said, "All right, but you must make sure that the prisoners of Azkaban don't cause any trouble. The world of adults is always full of helplessness and compromise. Horatio, you're still too young to understand." Horatio had an, as expected, expression. Cornering Dumbledore was as easy as something cornering a certain region in a certain competition, or perhaps not even that easy. Then I'll move Azkaban to the Black Lake. Horatio clapped his hands on the ground. Azkaban, move out. As Horatio's words fell, the people in the prison instantly felt a tremor, and Azkaban stood up under the shocked gazes of Dumbledore and Grindelwald. They exchanged glances, not knowing what to say. This magic was clearly a combination of alchemy and transfiguration. Horatio's ability to combine them showed that even without dark arts and his strange inventions, he was a very formidable opponent. One could only say that greatness needs no excess. Horatio opened a portal to a small island in the Black Lake, and Azkaban, with heavy steps, walked through the portal towards the island, finally squatting down in the center of the island. After all this, Horatio had the Dementors escort all the bewildered prisoners to the first-floor hall. He stood on the second floor, cleared his throat, and announced loudly with an amplification charm. "My dear test subjects, after friendly negotiations with Headmaster Dumbledore, Azkaban is now incorporated into Hogwarts, becoming the fifth house. It's a pity that I was warden for less than a month. I'm now transferred to Hogwarts to serve as the Dean of Azkaban House. But don't be sad, because you will also become new students of Hogwarts. To ensure your rights, I've decided to give each of you a silver handcuff and a copper ankle cuff, and also a beautiful Dementor study companion to constantly urge you to study hard. The glory of Azkaban must not be desecrated. Everyone will have a daily points assessment. If you earn 5 points that day, you can rest peacefully. If you don't earn enough, then you can enjoy a whole night of torment. If you dare to lose points, this dean is quite merciful and will let you choose your own way to die, and your soul will be fed to a Dementor." The prisoners in the hall were initially happy to go to Hogwarts to study and escape the devil Horatio, but hearing Horatio's almost perverted demands, they trembled in fear, pondering how to perform well at Hogwarts to earn points for Azkaban. Then Horatio opened a portal and put the basilisk into Azkaban, announcing to the prisoners present, "This is a pet left by Slytherin. Under the influence of my love, it voluntarily became the house pet of Azkaban House. If Azkaban House doesn't win the House Cup this year, I'm sorry, but you will all become its food." After speaking, Horatio glanced at Dumbledore behind him. "Let's see how you'll rig things this year. Even if you don't care about the lives of other prisoners, you'll have to consider serious." The biased Dumbledore wiped away cold sweat. Horatio's move had practically put him on the spot. "Basilisk, you and Thresh watch them here. If they dare to cause trouble, kill them on sight." The basilisk raised its head and let out a deafening roar at the prisoners in the hall, scaring them so much that they fell onto the ground. "Professor McGonagall, why do you think Headmaster Dumbledore is in such a hurry to call us to the Great Hall? There's still some time before the start of the school year." In the corridor, Professor Flitwick encountered a hurrying Professor McGonagall. "I don't know, it seems like there's something he needs to announce." Professor McGonagall slowed her pace, preparing to go to the Great Hall with Professor Flitwick. When they arrived at the Great Hall, Professor Dumbledore and the other professors were already waiting for them. Professor McGonagall approached Headmaster Dumbledore and said to him, "I apologize for being late, Headmaster Dumbledore. Is there something you need to announce to us?" For Professor McGonagall's safety, Dumbledore took a step away from her, then announced to the professors who had all arrived, "There are 2 main things I need to announce today." He paused, then continued, "First, I have invited my old friend Grindelwald from Nurmengard, and I intend to make him my assistant." The professors present were in an uproar, and Snape quickly retorted, "Am I crazy or are you? Lord Voldemort hasn't even been dealt with, and you're releasing Grindelwald, not to mention Horatio is lurking in the background. Do you want 3 Dark Lords to compete on the same stage? Before Dumbledore could speak, Grindelwald, dressed in a refined suit, walked out from the teacher's passage behind Dumbledore. What? Little fellow, do you have an opinion about me? The powerful aura made the professors present a little breathless. Grindelwald stared at Snape, a dangerous glint flashing in his heterochromatic eyes. Just as the word, danger, appeared on Snape's forehead, Grindelwald retracted his aura and smiled. Don't worry, Albus and I have an agreement. I won't do anything to you or the students. My main purpose here is to help Albus. Besides, compared to me, you should be more concerned about another big trouble. The professors present were confused by Grindelwald's words. What big trouble could be worse than Grindelwald being released from Nurmengard? Dumbledore glared at Grindelwald and continued, this is the second thing I need to tell you. You've also noticed the building that suddenly appeared on the island in the Black Lake, haven't you? For the peace of the world, Horatio and I have reached an agreement. Dumbledore hesitated, looking at the puzzled expressions of the professors present, and finally, with a heavy heart, said, Hogwarts will establish a 5th house, Azkaban House, with Horatio as its dean. The prisoners of Azkaban will enroll this year along with the new students, serving as students of Azkaban House. It exploded, the entire hall completely erupted. The professors present simply couldn't believe their ears. Establish Azkaban House. And let those heinous dark wizards attend classes with young witches and wizards. Professor McGonagall, under Grindelwald's jealous gaze, grabbed Dumbledore's sleeve. Headmaster Dumbledore, please tell me you're joking. Establish Azkaban House. And let those heinous dark wizards attend classes with young witches and wizards. Merlin's beard, this world has gone so mad I can't understand it anymore. I don't know how the school board and the students' parents will view Hogwarts. How to view Hogwarts? With your eyes, of course. A golden portal opened in the center of the Great Hall, and Horatio, along with the 6 marshals, stepped out of the portal and into the center of the Great Hall. Behind them were 2 neatly arranged lines of Dementors, each holding a black banner. In the center of the banner was a silver-gray emblem, on which a black Dementor was carved, and below the Dementor were the words, Azkaban House. As Horatio and his group stepped into the Great Hall, the temperature inside instantly dropped. A thin layer of frost began to appear on the tabletops, and black mist continuously poured out from the portal, as if a passage to the underworld had been opened. The sounds of hooves, armor rubbing, and chains dragging intertwined, constantly stimulating the hearts of everyone present. The professors watched in shock as Horatio, as if leading an army from the underworld to invade Hogwarts, raised their wands and cast the Patronus charm, trying to drive the Dementors out of the Great Hall. However, it was useless. The 6 marshals even had the ability to play with the Patronuses summoned by the professors as if they were toys. Horatio grabbed the 3 cats summoned by Professor McGonagall, kneaded them for a while, and then threw them back to Professor McGonagall. Don't try to deal with my Dementors with a little trick like the Patronus charm. Then Horatio snapped his fingers, and the professors present were instantly disarmed. To their disbelief, he sat in the main seat at the professors' table in the Great Hall, crossing his legs, and said, I want to be the dean of Azkaban House, the 5th house of Hogwarts. Who agrees? Who opposes? Dumbledore gave Professor McGonagall a look, as if to say, you see, it's not that I wanted to establish Azkaban House, but that Horatio has grown to a point where I can no longer stop him. Professor McGonagall also had a headache. This kid Horatio's strength had grown too fast. When she was in her 3rd year, she was still painstakingly studying Transfiguration, but Horatio had already conquered Azkaban. She had wondered why, when she read the newspaper some time ago, there was no news after Horatio was captured and taken to Azkaban. It turned out he was holding back a big move. Gagagaga. Professor McGonagall, last year you narrowly won the House Cup again. I realized that some old geezer was manipulating things behind the scenes, and I couldn't stop you from getting the House Cup by deducting points myself. So this year, I'm personally entering the arena to challenge you. Let's see if that old geezer still dares to manipulate things behind the scenes. Horatio sat in the main seat and arrogantly said to Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall could no longer bear it and roared, so how did my winning the House Cup offend you? Aren't you also a Gryffindor? Why do you always want to bring shame to your own house? Huh. Horatio was stunned for a moment. Right, why do I try so hard to prevent Gryffindor from winning the House Cup? Never mind, it's all the old geezer's fault. In the end, the professors had no choice but to accept the reality of Azkaban taking up residence at Hogwarts. As for whether the school board had any objections, Horatio's bloodline curse-killing technique was already eager to be used. Grindelwald looked at the smug Horatio, and a bold idea formed in his mind. He pulled Dumbledore aside and said to him, "How about moving Nurmengard next to Hogwarts and establishing a sixth house? I can let the Saints also enroll at Hogwarts, and I'll be the Dean of Nurmengard House." Dumbledore rolled his eyes at Grindelwald. "Don't even think about it. Thanks for watching.